Well, Happy New Year. So before we go to apologies, I have a few items of business that I want to clear up before we go on. So first one is I'd like to offer my congratulations to those who were lucky enough to be honoured in His Majesty's New Year's Honours List. So I want to pass on my congratulations to anybody who lives or works in the district that received an honour in the New Year's Honours List. Secondly, I'm going to seek your permission. Firstly, we have two teams from the district who are taking part in All-Ireland finals. So we have Errigal Kieran on Sunday coming, and we have Enniskillen Rugby Club on the Saturday after that. So with your permission, I would like to send letters from myself on behalf of the council wishing both teams, the respective teams, good luck in their All-Ireland finals. So I'm looking at a proposer in a second for that. Councillor Irvine, Councillor Roof, thank you. So thirdly, from our last meeting, we had a resident who passed away, somebody of note, and that was Jody Gormley. Whilst I didn't personally know Jody Gormley, I knew of his father, Eugene. His father had an Austin Cambridge and my father had a Morris Oxford, and those that know their old cars will know the similarities but the different names and those types of vehicles. And we would have met at Irvinstown Creamery many, many years ago. But Councillor McCann has indicated he would wish to speak. I did ask the group leaders and I did send a letter on to the family at the time because I felt it was more appropriate to get a message of condolences passed at the time. But Councillor McCann wishes to speak. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As you say, since we last met, Jody Gormley has sadly passed away. At the time of his death, he was a senior football manager at Twinnich St McCartans and had only a few short weeks ago had been on the sideline at Healy Park in Omagh, spurring on as Twinnich against Errigal Kieran in the Tyrone County final, and it's so hard to believe that he's no longer with us. Jody was indeed a remarkable man who achieved much in his short life. He was only 53 whenever he died. He was involved in various teams, including the Tyrone senior football team, and was part of that team who played Dublin in the All-Ireland final in 1995. And he also won 2 All-Ireland medals with Tyrone at under-21 level in 1991 and 1992. He also had successes with Antrim, winning the Tommy Murphy Cup, and he helped steer Abbey CBS and Newry to a Hogan Cup win. And he was a man who has left his mark indelibly on the GAA. Jody touched the lives of all who knew him, and even those who didn't know him. When the news of his illness became public, he recorded a podcast with Thomas Niblock and with Oisin McConville. And in that discussion, one could only be truly amazed at his immense courage and be humbled as he faced his terminal illness. If anybody hasn't watched that podcast, I would encourage you to do so. It's a testament to how remarkable a man Jody Gormley actually was. At his funeral, the congregation heard how Jody was a leader, a natural leader, and a role model. And Jody's good friend, Paddy Heaney, remarked how the biggest lesson he gave us all was his life. He showed us how to live, and he even showed us how to die. So in conclusion, Chair, I just want to extend from this council chamber this evening our sympathies to his wife, Deirdre, his children, Anya, James and Niamh, his mother, Sheila, and siblings, Damien, Anita and Owen. And thanks, Chair, I know you have sent out that letter of condolence on behalf of the council, so thanks for doing that. Cormail Margaret.
Right, thank you, Stephen. Next we'll go, sorry, I might have...
Thanks very much, Chair. Just with regard to His Majesty the King's New Year's Honours List, obviously on behalf of the party we extend our congratulations, but are you going to send a letter to the individuals concerned? And if you are, can I propose?
Yeah, if you'd like to propose that.
I propose that you send a letter to the individuals concerned.
And that's seconded by Councillor Rainey. Thank you. All in agreement? Okay. Okay. Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Well, I would just want to personally be associated with Councillor McCann's remarks regarding the late Jody Gormley. He certainly was a remarkable man in life and approaching his death, and he really is a very strong role model for all of us. And I want to express my personal sympathy to his wife, Deirdre, his children, and his wider family. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Anne-Marie Fitzgerald also online.
Yes, just my condolences also to Jody and his family. And then suppose just personally speaking, we've one of our employees, Brian Fury, has tragically lost his sister-in-law over the Christmas period as well. So we can't forget all our employees and their loved ones as well this time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now I'm on to apologies. So first of all, I'm going to go to Councillor Debbie Coyle.
Thanks, Chair. The only one I've received so far is from Councillor Catherine Kelly.
And we've received one from Councillor Brock as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Next, we go to Councillor Victor Warrington.
Thanks, Chair. I'm not aware of any apologies. I take it that Councillor Robbins is just running late.
Okay, thank you, Victor. Next, we go to Councillor Paul Robinson.
Apologies, Chair.
Okay. And I don't need to go to the SCLP or Alliance, and Councillor Deehan's here, so I take that's all the apologies. Next, we go to confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on the 3rd of December 2024. So for accuracy, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12, page 13, page 14, page 15, page 16, page 17, page 18. Proposed by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Warrington. Next, we go to declarations of interest. I'm not seeing anybody indicating at the moment, but if anybody comes across something, so obviously update us. Thank you. Next, we go to matters arising. So page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 3. Councillor Green, page 3.
I hope I'm on the right thing here. 6.1, Department of Infrastructure, members' queries, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. I see a report here in reference to Storm Bert, and I thought maybe it might be an opportune time to mention our storm that we had last week, if the chair would give me a bit of latitude on that.
Yeah, go on ahead, Jim.
Okay. It's just in relation to around my own area and a lot of areas in Fermanagh, especially on higher ground and round schools, that where there was no salt and no gritting, even the grit piles, even on my own road at the minute, which, if anyone knows it, is a fairly steep road, fairly high in the hills, and the grit pile still isn't out. I remember us having a meeting here with the Department of Infrastructure, Road Service, in relation to this, and way back 2, 3, 4 months ago, and myself and a number of other members from numerous parties mentioned about grit piles that they needed to be out really at the beginning of November, and I think we got assurances that that was going to happen. Well, it happened some places. In fact, they were still putting out grit piles last week, and as of the day, a number of roads in my area of Cunyon and Roslay still hasn't got them. I think it's disgraceful. I think winter isn't a thing that surprises it. It comes every year. It comes after autumn. And if we if road service can't even manage to get grit piles out, it doesn't say much. So I am suggesting we write to road service. We highlight the fact that a lot of the rural schools that's supposed to be on the gritting and salting lists weren't done. A lot's the grit piles still in the middle of January 2025 still hasn't been completed, and I think we need to hold somebody to account. I believe it was privatised this year. It was private operators that were out doing it. I really think them contracts need to be seriously looked at if in the middle of winter after a storm that the grit pile still hasn't been put out. So I'm proposing that we write to the local and indeed link the minister into it, highlighting this. And just one last thing. I remember a few years ago we talked about that in other parts of the north the grit piles had there'd been salt added to them, and there was great praise for that. I think that only happened 1 year, and it's never happened since, but I believe it happens in other areas. So again, Fermanagh and the Omagh area seems to be gets the least of the least.
Thank you, Seamus. Next we'll go to Councillor Stephen McCann.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Happy to second Councillor Green's proposal. Indeed, I'd cause to contact DFA for the very same reason in relation to West Tyrone roads as well. So happy to second that proposal. I was going to speak in item page 4, Centre for Cross-Border Cooperation.
I'll come back to you on that.
Sound.
Okay. Councillor Barton.
Thank you very much. I also had cause to contact DFI over areas of gritting too. But there's one thing I want to ask, and I'm wondering if Councillor Green would mind me adding this to his list, and that is how much secondary gritting is now carried out in Fermanagh and Omagh. Once upon a time, when the scheduled gritting route had been completed, we'll say at 7 o'clock in the morning, another group of men, women, whatever, got into the lorries and then continued on to secondary, onto other roads that hadn't been gritted, but yet carried a considerable amount of traffic. And I'm wondering how much secondary gritting is now carried out. Also, I'd like to know what the policy is in relation to gritting around schools, etc., and also gritting within the 30-mile limits. You know, there were a number of villages in our north where the towns, where the villages, the roads within the villages weren't even gritted. And I'm wondering what the policy is there.
Thank you. Are you happy enough, Seamus? Yes, thank you. So you've heard Seamus's proposal that we write to update us on the situation with gritting, and also some of Councillor Barton's queries, seconded by Councillor McCann. All in agreement? Thank you. So next we go to page 4. Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chair. Just on item 7.3 on page 4, so a couple of items just to draw to members' attention. You'll recall at the last meeting, it was agreed that we would seek the meeting with officials in the absence of the Minister, and in the intervening period, we've now had clarification that the Minister is available to meet with the Council, and that will take place here in the Town Hall at 3:30 on the 22nd of January. I have spoken, Chair, to the Chair of the Planning Committee, as that's the same meeting slot. So it's also proposed that we would convene the Planning Committee here in Enniskillen at 2 o'clock that day to facilitate members to attend the ministerial meeting in person. We'll then have a recess for the ministerial meeting and then recommence on planning. So, and just the second item, Chair, on health-related matters. Members will recall, I think it was to the November Policy and Resources Committee meeting, we had considered a proposal from the International Centre of Local and Regional Development regarding how to implement the health motion that was adopted by the Council some time ago. Just to advise that we have now received the updated proposal, and the initial workshop with members is scheduled to take place on the 20th of January from 4 to 6 p.m, and that'll be via WebEx, so we'll send the invitations for that, and the research team will lead that process.
Thank you. So lights are flashing on and off here. So Councillor Thomas O'Reilly.
Thank you, Chair. And it's with some pleasure, Chair, that I speak on the subject early in 2025 of the construction work that has commenced on the health centre, or at least on the groundworks for the health centre in Lisnaskea, the much awaited health centre in Lisnaskea. And it's a very good news story to start 25 with. And I'm led to believe from discussions in the Assembly yesterday that there is going to be quite a number of GPs, up to 16 GPs operating out of the health centre in Lisnaskea, alongside allied health professionals and so forth. So this is great news for the Erne East area and indeed the wider area with the pressures that our citizens are having accessing GP services. So that's good news, Chair. Alongside of that, we had a long public consultation at one stage on Pathfinder, and there was a focus to be put on Omagh and Erne East as two areas that had high health needs that could be addressed through very specific interventions. And whether that got superseded with something else, but my understanding was a focus still to be kept on Omagh and Erne East to be looked at. And can I propose, Chair, that we try to find out what, maybe Alison can update us where we are with that and what is happening. Thank you.
Well, Chair, just on the first part of it, I think certainly we can formalise this. My recollection, it could be a year or 18 months ago that we received a report from the Trust, which essentially was their formal conclusion of Pathfinder. However, and John Boyle may wish to comment, through our own wellbeing community network, the Council has taken, I suppose, the initiative looking at multimorbidities in Erne East as one of our own priority areas, and we've also done some work in Omagh in that regard. And while the Department of Health and Trust and PHA have an involvement, it really would be under the leadership of the Council. But so we could certainly formalise the request in, but I think that's how we have endeavoured to bring that work forward. To the best of my knowledge, but John may be able to correct me, there is no direct financial support for new interventions in the two identified areas. But it might just refer to John at this point, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Alison. Yeah, Alison's absolutely right. The work is continuing just informally through the Integrated Wellbeing Network. And that's a group from the Trust, the PHA, the community and voluntary sector, and ourselves in the Council. At this stage, there is an analysis being undertaken by the community and voluntary sector as to the specific health needs. Now, I know we undertook a study at the initial part as part of the community planning process as to what the health needs were in Erne East and in the Omagh area. I suppose this is to define it more specifically, and I know that community conversation, and we've spoke about that in here before in the chamber, that community conversation is at this stage being undertaken by the community and voluntary sector in both of those areas. What I can say is that we can bring a report through community planning or indeed through the council here in relation to an update as to where that has progressed at this point in time.
Chair, and thanks to Alison and John for those updates, and I would certainly welcome that we would get a clear understanding where we are. I had a meeting with the Oak Healthy Living Centre and the MP and so forth there today, and certainly the very strong message that was coming out of there were that the voluntary community sector is consulted to death at this stage, and its implementation and action that is needed seen in 2025, not more asking questions or where the information in their view has been well provided. So it would be welcome to see what we're doing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Robert Irvine.
I was shared, just Alison, with regard to the planning committee meeting next week. Do we need a formal proposal to change the location?
I think operationally we can proceed, but certainly if you wish to regularise, we can
Yeah,
do that accordingly. We can take it.
And if there's any more discussion on the Pathfinder, I'll have to declare an interest in the PHA. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Thompson, second.
Councillor Thompson seconding that proposal by Councillor Irvine, and we're all in agreement that the planning committee moves to Enniskillen. Okay, so page 5.
Just at the bottom of page 4 then, Chair, I think Councillor McCann was maybe going to comment. This is on the increase in insurance premiums. We have correspondence back from the Centre for Cross-Border Cooperation, which we did submit all of the previous information we've received, and they've indicated it may be something they'd investigate, and they would certainly be willing to engage further with the council in this regard.
Okay, Councillor McCann.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And it's just to more or less note the correspondence on to take them up on the offer of a meeting. I think it'd be something that'd be very worthwhile. And if it helps in shedding the light on insurance premiums and trying to see a reduction in them, has to be welcome. So happy to do that, Chair.
Okay. Councillor McElduff.
I've a separate item in relation to page 4, but if you needed me to support.
Need a seconder first for Stephen.
I'm happy to second Councillor McCann's proposal.
Okay, thank you. And we're all in agreement that we do meet with the group. Yeah, thank you. Councillor McElduff.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just in reference to civic recognition, 7.2, if I could just suggest that 2 receptions be organised in the future to recognise significant achievement. Now, if other councillors have contacted you in a different way, so be it, but if not, then it would be the Sacred Heart College, Omagh, regarding the Ulster Schools McDavid Cup. Ulster Schools, very significant Ulster-wide achievement there. On the 18th of December, great team victory over St. Louis Kilkeel in the final at Keady. And secondly, Omagh CBS retaining 4 in a row actually. The Ranafast Cup, having beaten Abbey CBS. And they're 2 very significant achievements by local schools. So I'd like to suggest the appropriate civic recognition. And just to say that the Abbey CBS team, where Jody Gormley was previously a teacher, actually came onto the pitch wearing Trillick jerseys as a symbol of solidarity. So I'll leave it at that, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm quite happy to accept those if you forward the necessary paperwork. Yeah. Thank you. So, Councillor Deacon.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I certainly want to support Councillor McElduff in his proposal regarding those significant sporting achievements by Sacred Heart College and Omagh CBS. Very well done indeed. And our young people in our local area really does us proud. So I'm happy to second that. But Chair, I had actually indicated to come in under 7.3. And if I may just return to item 7.3, please, Chair.
Yeah, I'll allow you. I don't know how I missed
Okay. That. Yeah. Thank you, Chair. No problem. No, thanks to Alison and John for their updates regarding the ministerial visit. Unfortunately, I will have to regrettably give apologies for that meeting because the Royal College of General Practitioners is hosting a conference on that particular afternoon of the 22nd of January, and I'm involved in a workshop at that time. But the Minister will actually be joining the conference, and the theme of the conference is the challenges of practicing primary care in a rural setting. So I do hope that we will have an opportunity to appraise the Minister. Additionally, in addition to the input from the Council, that we will have the opportunity of appraising him of the very significant challenges that face us at present. So thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Podrigan Kelly.
Mine is page 5, Chair. Not sure if you're onto that yet.
Okay, so yeah, page 5, yeah.
It's just in relation to 7.2 or 7.5. I would just like to welcome the fact that the public inquiry has started yesterday, albeit I couldn't make it due to work commitments, but I look forward to attending later this week. I think that this is a perfect opportunity now for us as a council to release a statement highlighting our corporate position, and that is in opposition to the proposed mine. And I make that a proposal, please. Also, can I seek clarity on the JR situation, Alison? I know there was a bit of talk about it yesterday. There seems to be untrue speaks about it in the last few days. So just a bit of clarity on that. It doesn't have to be today if you want to come back to me individually. Appreciate that. Thank you.
No, thank you, Chair. Yes, as Councillor Kelly has indicated, Chair, the inquiry commenced yesterday. So there was some discussion in the course of the presentations in relation to a successful judicial review that Derry City and Strabane District Council had recently pursued over the Department for the Economy in relation to the issuing and granting of various prospecting licences, one of, or possibly two of which related to Dalradian. And there was criticism by one of the representatives of the third party representatives regarding the role of Fermanagh and Omagh District Council as to why we hadn't taken or participated in the judicial review regarding the granting of those licences. Chair, my recollection on this, I suppose it's probably worth saying the council has traditionally opposed the granting of licences for mineral exploration across our district, and that related to Carillion, Flintridge, as well as to Dalradian. The council had previously requested support from Derry City and Strabane District Council, financial support in relation to the representations at the public inquiry. And the council had advised that while they were very supportive of our position, they wouldn't be providing financial assistance. And I think then when the offer or the potential to judicially review the licences in questions came forward, given the geographical boundaries related primarily to the Derry and Strabane District Council area, I don't think there was maybe a formal request for us to participate, but I think it was understood that we were committed elsewhere in any case to the public inquiry. I know that Philip, Mr. Kingston's here this evening anyway, Chair, if you wish to have any further clarity, but certainly I think it was a little bit disingenuous of the Speaker at yesterday's hearing, and it wasn't that relevant to the subject matter under consideration. But certainly it was not something that the Council has, I suppose we've robustly defended our position in relation to the granting of such licences, and we'll be reporting to Regeneration and Community later this week on another set of publications that the Council may also wish to take a view on in that regard.
Thank you. Philip, does Philip want to speak? No, he doesn't.
Are you happy now? Okay, that's fine.
Right, okay, thank you. Councillor Ovens.
Thank you, Chair, and it's on the same issue. I mean, I too very much welcome the fact that we're now at this stage with the PSE inquiry. I mean, it's been a long time. It's been a long time coming. So I think it's important now that we're at this point that all parties involved, you know, are given the space and the time to make an informed and come to an informed position. Obviously, absolutely right to make their cases, but ultimately, this is now the point of time in which a decision is going to be reached. Hope relatively quickly, I do hope. Just in terms of the proposal for this council issuing a press release saying we welcome it and that again we oppose it. I mean, obviously that doesn't have my support. I think it's speaking on behalf of my party, that wouldn't have our party's support, so we wouldn't support that. Just in terms of the matters or the minutes in front of us, Chair, when it was raised at last month's meeting, it was very helpfully disclosed that 2 invoices so far had been submitted, and then I helpfully got spoken to Jill after the meeting, and she shared a copy of those invoices, which was very useful. I suppose, Chair, just in terms of where we are now, could I get an update, or could we get an update in terms of whether any further invoices have been received as of today or the last appropriate time? And then, Chair, again, it's a wider point, and it's something that we've raised a number of times. I still do struggle with the concept that this council has not been billed, or this council is not out of pocket in any way so far in terms of the legal representation at the inquiry, in terms of preparation of case, in terms of engagement with the council, even the fact that this council now has a barrister attending the inquiry. is it still categorically the case that we have not been billed or we are not out of pocket in any way for that legal representation, either representation at inquiry or preparation for case or engagement on any other means? Because, Chair, if it's not the case, again, similarly to the previous point, it would be really useful if we could get the information on what expenditure has been incurred so far in terms of legal costs. Thank you.
Okay. I'll take Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Chair. I want to support Councillor Pollaghan Kelly's proposal. This council does have a very strong corporate position on the gold mine and has done for quite a while. And I think a statement is timely, given the public inquiry has started yesterday. And I'm happy to support that request. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose it's only a comment. I suppose after Councillor Ovens' contribution there, I think many would say that it seems strange that the UUP seems to be in favour of toxic gold mining, but against the provision of leisure facilities in Fermanagh. It's a strange position to take up. I don't think it's going to be a vote winner for them. If the UUP thinks it's going to be a vote winner, I think they're sadly mistaken. I think they haven't read the room. I think it's a fatal mistake on their behalf. They've been trying for years to become the minority unionist party in this, and I think with Councillor Ovens' help, I think they're going to succeed at the next local government elections.
Chair, sorry, in relation just to the queries regarding the invoices, I suppose what I would say, Chair, in general terms, I think the council receives something like over 12,500 invoices a year. So what the council does, you set the budget, we proceed to implement. To the best of my knowledge, since the last meeting, 2 further invoices have been received. As previously advised, expenditure is tracking against the agreed budget. And if there are variations to that, we will report accordingly. In terms of requests for specific invoices, if that's what the member wishes, we'll deal with that as an access to information request, which is how such information would normally be provided.
Sorry, you've already been in, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, the council can deal with requests for information whatever way it may deem appropriate, but as a member of this council, it seems strange that we can only get the information that way. But regardless, I mean, in terms of be so, Chair, if I request that information tonight, is me requesting it now enough, or do you want me to follow it up with an email, Alison? And then secondly, in relation to that specific point about legal costs, again, sorry to dwell on it, but can we get absolute clarity that this council is still not out of pocket in any way for the legal representation or preparation for the inquiry that's ongoing at the moment? Because I do find that very, very strange.
So I think, given that, at least in my opinion, the query keeps changing, I think it would be helpful to get it in writing, and we'll certainly accept that then from the date as when received. The queries that certainly I've been asked previously, to the best of my recollection, Councillor Ovens, from you, relate to our consultants team. So I have provided that information. My understanding in terms of the legal expenditure, we have received some earlier invoices. I think it's in the region of £20,000, but I will clarify that. I don't have the information in front of me, and we will include that within the provision. I think probably now is also, and the reason I highlight that is that the focus of discussion to date, certainly that I'm aware of, has been on the council's decision to be represented at the public inquiry, which has been the, I suppose, the matter under contest. So we can, if you clarify in the ATI what exactly you would like provided, we will then assess it in that, which would be due process. In terms of the provision of information, and I think this is important as well, Chair, so members are required and are furnished with all appropriate information to enable them to make a decision. All of that information was provided. So I would respectfully say, and while certainly you can ask for the information, but essentially you're monitoring a decision that the council has already taken. There's no information requirement associated with that.
Sir Stephen Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. And likewise, I'm happy enough with the principle of us publicly reiterating the corporate position of this council, which is that it's in opposition to the Dalradian project. The only thing I would just say, I had the opportunity to attend the opening of the inquiry yesterday and to stand with residents in their opposition. But I'm conscious that given some of what materialised today at the inquiry based on some of the reports that I'm seeing, apparently it's the case that the Department for Infrastructure are now evaluating overnight and going on into the morning as to whether a failure to adequately consult with the Republic on plans for the gold mine constitutes a sufficient impediment that it will impact on the continuation of the inquiry. In that context, it may be prudent and worthwhile us holding the release of any press release until we actually have clarification from the Minister, or indeed presented at the inquiry, that this is actually going to be continuing and we're not going to see an impediment.
I'll come in at the end, Chair.
Yeah, Councillor McCann, you were in already.
Just a very brief comment, Chair. Just to welcome again, putting record the fact that we are having legal representation at the public inquiry, which is no doubt going to be very technical in nature. And just to ask the question that should information requests come into the council, will that information be treated as privileged whenever it's issued, or could it appear in public domain?
Well, Chair, just on that latter point, the reason, and I suppose any information request that we would receive, it would all be collated first of all. Then, if it would be deemed, if any of it would be what's known as Environmental Information Regulations, EIR, it would be screened, and if there are required to be any appropriate redactions, I'm not saying that will be the case, that would be advised, and if there's any provisos on the or requirements around the provision of that information, that would also be clarified at the time. But I don't have it in front of me, so couldn't take that view. If I may just share on Councillor Donnelly's comments, I think if Councillor Kelly and Councillor McCann were content, I think that would be quite prudent. I know there were quite significant revelations today, which could have a real impact from the department's ability to enable this inquiry to proceed or to continue. So if we're satisfied it's continuing, that we could make the statement at the appropriate juncture.
Okay. Councillor Kelly?
Yep, happy with that, Chair.
Okay. Councillor McCann, you second? Yeah. Councillor Warrington?
Thank you, Chair. We just want to clear a few things. First of all, the Ulster Unionist Party is not opposed to a new leisure complex in Enniskillen, and to suggest so is totally wrong. We have supported the Forum project going along. As everybody knows, our major concern is the escalating cost as we go on, how the cost is spiralling from what was originally agreed probably in the last mandate. As for the Dalradian thing, personally, we're neither for or against. We want due process to make the decision, which will happen. But at the end of the day, let us remember the significant investment money that is probably going to, if it goes ahead, that is potentially going to come out of Dalradian, and that can't be overlooked as we move forward. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Maguire?
Thank you, Chair. So, just a few thoughts on the conversation that's taken place. I'm a little bit at a loss. But am I right in, through the Chair to the Chief Executive, that members of the Council have requested through Freedom of Information access to invoices in relation to some of the Council's work, or was it just a general request from a member for information on invoices? Just if you could clarify that for me.
Sorry, previously, yes, we have received FOI requests from a member in relation to various aspects of council business, which included invoices. My interpretation of Councillor Ovens's request this evening is that it would meet the threshold to be considered as a freedom for information or access to information request, and I will deal with it. But what I have asked is that is put in writing, because my perception, I appreciate it's not, Councillor Ovens doesn't agree, that the question keeps changing. So the easiest way for that to be clarified is for that to be put in writing. It'll then be dealt with as an access to information request, and then going back to Councillor McCann's queries, we will assess it in the normal way. The point that I was making in terms of, yes, there's certainly a general presumption of provision of information for members, but that is to get to a decision. Generally, you don't also seek or wish to seek the copies of the invoices. So my point is, I think that is for scrutiny of a decision rather than decision-making processes, but it can be provided using the ATI framework.
Well, then, would it be in order for me to make the proposal that if a member of this council requests the freedom of information, which means it's in the public domain and then it's open to everybody, I believe, is not the conditions of FOA. Well, if a member of the council requests of yourselves an FOI, that we all are CC'd in with both the nature of the request and the response that goes out, would that be feasible?
I think my response to that would be, Chair, and this is something I've actually commented on previously in this forum. Normally, officers reply to council requests via reports to committee. Okay, so certainly there would be two options. Why I'm saying we wouldn't routinely copy freedom of information requests made by an individual to multiple parties, because there can be GDPR and other considerations. But if the proposal or if the request from Councillor Maguire is that that information is enshrined in a committee report, which would then be shared with the council, that's certainly fine for us to do so. There is no secrecy in the information, so very happy to provide that.
That's exactly the point I'm trying to make, this clumsy recommendation that all members of the council should be privy to the information. And I do believe that the majority of members are quite content with the information that is put forward in front of the council at the various committees. But in this particular occasion, we seem to have a member that has a problem with information from directors. But what I'm suggesting then is that we as council members should also be privy to the questions that other members are asking when it's in relation to financial ongoings of the council. I'm at a loss as to why this request is made. I think the majority of us here are at a loss as to why the request is made. But I do believe that we all should be made aware that the request has been made and should also be privy to whatever information one member receives in response to those emails. Not quite sure what your guidance is again, Chief Executive, on that.
Well, I think there's two linked parts. As I understand it, I will receive a correspondence from Councillor Evans clarifying exactly the request, but my understanding from this evening's meeting appears to relate to all invoices, including legal invoices and consultant invoices associated with representation at the Dalradian Public Inquiry. And that information, if my interpretation of correct is the query, that can then be included into a committee report when that information is collated. I think the councillor may have suggested he wishes to see copies of the invoices. So that's, we will look at that when it comes in, and we will then report accordingly. I would just note for committee reporting purposes, Chair, that the relevant committee would be Policy and Resources. Those papers are now ready for next week, so so in case there's any suggestion of delaying, it would be to next month's meeting that information would probably be available, unless we're able to do a late report without agenda notification. So that's
okay, happy enough with that answer, Chief Executive, but I have to say that an individual member of the council putting in freedom of information requests for information that's already available through committee papers is rather strange, and that the idea of all council members not being privy to this information is causing me a bit of trouble, because I'm sure the majority of the council is content with the papers that are preferred every month to PNR. But it's a bit of a witch hunt, but I would like to know why the question has been asked, and when he has asked the question, I'd like to know what the response was, because I think it's very difficult for the rest of the 40 members to be up to speed with exactly what is going on, but it seems rather a waste of time, in my opinion. Chair.
Thank you. So there was a proposal by Councillor Pottering Kelly, seconded by Councillor Stephen McCann, that the council reiterates its position of opposing the gold mining. Will be held to an appropriate time based on what is currently going on at the PAC. But so subject to that there, we still, because it's a proposal, I see dissent, so I'm going to go and put that to the vote. So if you can put that to the vote, please. That's right. Recorded vote. So while the vote's been set up, Philip's going to speak.
Members, just in relation to the statement coming from the council, I just want to formally put on the record, members of, I know you're all aware of this, but I just want to again just formally put it on the record that the council does attend at this public inquiry, also very much in the role of a statutory consultee in relation to that. And in that regard, it is a consultee both within the planning section and within the environmental health department. And clearly the responses that it makes in relation to those matters are purely objective responses that it makes in relation to those, and they're not matters which are being made in a capacity as an objector or anything like that. So it's just to formally, again, for the record, note the council's dual role in relation to this. Whilst it has raised objections in relation to this inquiry, it also attends very much in capacity as a statutory consultee.
Okay, so vote ready to go. Okay. So, what's going on there? We're online, yeah. Yeah. I have 5 online. Councillor Mahon was one, but he's just disappeared. So. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's 24 for, 12 against, and 2 abstentions. So proposal's carried. So page. Yeah. So Councillor Maguire made a proposal. Is there anybody seconding that? Councillor McCann. So all in agreement that his report comes back to committee. It'll be all agreed. Thank you. So bottom of page 5, page 6.
Thank you, Chair. Just item 7.7. We have had a response from the County Librarian, Head of Cultural Services, Monaghan County Council. This was regarding the request if any cross-border solution could be explored regarding the return of library books between the 2 jurisdictions. So I think the suggestion has been well received in Monaghan, and the County Librarian has indicated that she will discuss with her colleagues, and notes that there would also be Monaghan residents would avail of library services north of the border as well.
Councillor Irvine.
Thank you very much. It's 7.8. Just clarification from Alison.
Okay, I'll come back to that. I'll go to Councillor Michael Duff for this one.
I'll propose the adoption of the letter.
Okay.
Chair, and just as the Chief Executive has said, it's been well received. In my recent visit to Monaghan Library, when I did return my books, right? I mean, I did.
And paid the appropriate penalty?
Well, no, there was an amnesty.
All right.
There was an amnesty at the time, and, you know, my worst fears were not realised when I went through the door with great trepidation, you know, and owned up. They said it's okay, it's okay, but I had asked Roy if he was hidden by Emmyvale and Monaghan, and he said he wasn't, so I had to go myself. But no, it was said to me that, for example, in Monaghan Library, which is a big civic centre, you can actually borrow a book in Cork and leave it back in Monaghan Library. And I'm thinking, you know, if you live in Clogher or 5 Mile Town, or if you lived in Newton Butler or Clonus, you know, it's such a local arrangement. It'd be nice to see that in place for the future, you know, across the 2 library services. So I'll leave it like that. Just propose the adoption of the letter. Thank you.
Okay, and somebody to second that? Councillor Boyle, thank you. All in agreement? So next, go to Councillor Irvine, 7.8. Right, Councillor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just Alison, clarification on 2 things in the point in the minutes. One, have we got a date yet for the special council meeting with regard to talking about the full business case? And 2, will a pre-members meeting be arranged so we can actually discuss in detail the finer points? Because unlike what some councillors say, we as a council grouping are not against the development of the Fermanagh Legal Forum. However, we have severe reservations about the current design that sits on the table, particularly the cost that will impact on the ratepayers of this district going forward. And if we could have at that meeting, and I've asked Director Boyle before, the design team there, so they could actually field construction questions, because I, in one, have severe reservations and have some serious questions to ask in regard to what has happened that has got to the full business case. And without saying anything, I'm led to believe there are certain major things that have had to be re-looked at. And my question would be, why were they not looked at before? And what was the rationale for carrying down a route that suddenly you've hit a blank wall and that you have to retract? Thank you.
Chair, just to answer the 2 questions. So we're awaiting the report from the project managers, and that's what's needed to complete the full business case. And we obviously need that to get to members in due consideration. I know there was comment at the last meeting about a timely fashion for you to receive that. So we don't have a date as yet. As soon as we receive the project manager's report, we will be able to then proceed to finalise the full business case, and will alert members, or advise members rather, of the date of the special council meeting. I think I'd previously indicated, Chair, that we would facilitate a briefing in advance of the special council meeting, and that we would seek to have wider design team attendance. But again, just to be clear, the purpose of that briefing is on the design that has been taken forward from outline business case OBC through to full business case, so it won't be a redesign session. I'm not sure of the information you're receiving, Councillor, because that's certainly contrary to anything that I am aware of. What we will receive is a report that's based on the design, and that will reflect the tender that has been submitted by the contractor. So yes, we will be arranging briefings in advance, and yes, as soon as we have the report, we will be then able to advise you of the date of the special council meeting.
Oh, sorry, to carry on from that, Chair, if you don't mind. Can I take it then, if the design team are in attendance, they will be able to field any technical questions that we as members feel that we can put to them?
Yes, that would be my expectation. Certainly, Chair, I would think there's also fair capacity within the team, even without design team attendance.
Any questions in regard to cost?
Chair, yeah, I think, and I think it's important to be clear, any questions that have been raised on the project so far have always been addressed. The QS is obviously, there's a specific service cost consultancy who's part of the design team. So yes, that will be there. But I think it's important. The members approved the design that is going forward to full business case. So that is the detail on which they will be commenting. They obviously won't be commenting around iterations of a design that they haven't been asked to consider.
Okay. Next, Councillor Victor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to support the previous speaker, obviously, in his queries. This is probably the right place to bring this up. My understanding is and I know it was spoke on, so I'll not go into too much depth in committee at the last P&R. I'm aware that a letter was received by the council, both the chief executive and yourself, Chair, and I am just wondering, can we as councillors not have sight of that letter, or why we can't have sight of that letter? And I certainly at this stage would propose that we as a full member council see what that letter all entailed. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so Chair, happy to deal with that, and I think as Councillor Warrington has indicated, it was referenced at a previous meeting. So the Chair received a letter. It was CC'd to me. The Chair asked that all of the matters raised, sorry for clarity, it was signed by a number of companies. There were the individual from whose email it came subsequently advised that it should not have issued on their behalf. I did respond at the Chair's request in detail to each of the points raised. They related primarily, Chair, to matters that had been fully considered at the OBC stage. So that included site location, decant arrangements, consultation and engagement. Certainly, Chair, if you wish, I'm quite happy to circulate the letter, both the letter and the response that I made. I think where we run a slight risk, Chair, if I may say, we are revisiting the same argument every meeting. The Council does have a position that if you've resolved a course of action within 6 months, the matter is not revisited. All of the matters in the letter were actually, most of them were included in the defeated motion. So they've all been considered very recently by the Council. So certainly my suggestion would be, if you wish, Chair, I can circulate that to the members together with my response. But nothing in it will come as a surprise to you.
Okay, thank you, Chief Executive. Well, there's nothing in the letter that nobody should be aware of, but and the reply is there to be seen, and I think with your, if you believe that's appropriate, I would like it forwarded to all 40 councillors, and then they can make their own decisions along with the reply. Okay, Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair, and I suppose it's like Groundhog Day again in the chamber, where we see a certain party with smoke and mirrors being against the redevelopment of the Lakeland Forum under the guise of costs. If it's not done now, let's be honest about it, it ain't ever going to happen. It's never going to be done. There is people out there suggesting that that certain private companies wants leisure facilities privatised in the county, and that they seem to be being aided and abetted in their pursuit of this. I, for one, don't want to provide anything that's a second-class facility to Fermanagh. We have seen it often enough through government where we have been treated as second-class citizens. For once, we are coming with a state-of-the-art facility for the residents of Fermanagh. I believe it's outrageous. I said it before, a certain party is misreading the room when it comes to this. I think the vast majority of people in Fermanagh wants this. They don't want to be the only county in Ireland without a leisure facility. And that's what's going to happen if they get their way. There was an article in a local newspaper this week that stated that a motion was put in and wanted a slight delay on it. That is completely misleading of what the thing was. It was made clear in the chamber that night by the Chief Executive, by everyone, if the motion had went through, it rescinded every decision that was taken from the start of this process, and we were back to square one. We were back years, but back. So let's not have this smoke and mirrors. If a certain party's against the leisure facility being built, be honest enough and come out and say it. Say the reason why they don't want it and which businesses wants to privatise leisure. Just come out and say it, and be honest about it. And you know what? They might get more credit in this chamber if they did.
Councillor Roof.
Thanks, Chair. And just on that, I think it really is disingenuous for all unions to say that they support the redevelopment of the forum, but not its current proposed form. The current proposed form is the only show in town. That's the only forum that we're going to have here. Okay, we have put the investment into that. We have done years of work to get to this point. So to say that they support the redevelopment but not in its current form is a nonsense. If you don't support the current form, you do not support the redevelopment of the forum. It is as simple as that. Okay. Now, everyone will have their own reservations on the night. Everyone will have various opinions on what they do or do not want in the facility. That's fine. It's fine to have that opinion. But to say that you don't support it in its current form means you do not support it, and that is it. That's as clear as it can be.
Councillor Maguire.
Lord Margaret Carley, thank you, Chair. Again, I just have to say what I've been saying to everybody when the forum is discussed in such a negative manner, that I find it almost incredulous that an investment of 50 million plus to a state-of-the-art, forward-looking leisure centre in the town of Enniskillen is something to be negative about. I cannot believe what some of the councillors, indeed some of the councillors that are here for their second or third mandate and maybe longer, who are fully aware of the process to date and the steps that were taken from the initial meetings in the forum to discuss the potential of a redevelopment of the leisure facility in Enniskillen. Fully aware that the procedures, as was outlined to us from day one, have been followed, adhered to, and have been performed correctly. When people were fit to read the local media and ask questions in a negative manner, again, about the forum, I had to say there is no decision made yet. We're still waiting for the full business plan, and I look forward to it. And from all the other engagements that we've had along the road in the potential investment in our town has all been very positive in my estimation, and the majority of the councillors in this chamber. The continual dragging back to try to, as Councillor Green indicated, to rescind all the good work that has been done over the last 3, 4, 5 years, whatever length of time we're going through this process. But to be running to the media, to be fueling the negativity out there, I cannot believe it. And some councillors would want to really think, what are they doing in here for the benefit of the people of the Fermanagh and Omagh district? An investment that's already got a grant of 20 million, very welcome, which will relieve the burden on our taxpayers, but yet it's presented as if the forum is going to be such an onerous task for our ratepayers going forward. And already in some of the estimates meetings, we have been indicated that the impact is not that severe, that it fits within our usual targets to keep the rates as low as possible. So I really have to say that this negative media coverage and now negativity within the chamber of the council is incredulous, and councillors would really want to think, what do they want to leave Enniskillen like in 50 years' time? I'll not see it, but I'd be quite content when the forum's finished that I at least have put some input to the benefit and the well-being of the people of my district, and especially my town. Gurmagat.
Sir Owens.
Thank you, Chair. And I suppose just because something's said, it doesn't necessarily make it to be true. Sorry, Earl. I was just making the point that just because something's said, it doesn't necessarily make it true. And I mean, month after month, we come into this chamber, and lots of big, broad statements are made, and quite often they're without basis.
Speak closer into the mic. We're not hearing you, Mark.
Quite often, Chair, they're without basis. I mean, in terms of this, again, there have been broad and inaccurate statements made again tonight. The Ulster Group and this council are not opposed to the redevelopment or significant investment in the forum. We actually support that. What I will admit, and I will stand up all day, every day, and say is there is significant concern locally in terms of this council's current trajectory in terms of affordability, in terms of what I believe and what I can see, but also what other people are telling me. So, and I know they're engaged with other councillors as well. There is significant concern in terms of what this how much this forum is going to cost, the redevelopment is going to cost, and then particularly, I mean, Councillor Maguire made the point of the implications aren't severe. I mean, he and I obviously have very different interpretation of the word severe, because I look at what is being produced and I look at how much this council is going to be indebted over a 20-year bank loan, and I consider it severe. And I suspect if we were to go out to your ordinary punter on the ground out there, your ordinary ratepayer, or your ordinary both domestic and non-domestic, so you go to your business and tell them that we're borrowing so many millions of pounds for the next 20 years, and this is the interest, this is the bank loan repayments each year or each month, and then this is the interest we're going to have to pay on top of those repayments. I would be quite confident a significant number of ratepayers in Fermanagh and Omagh would be quite concerned by that. And I suppose, Chair, I appreciate we're heading towards an investment decision. Well, before I get on to my question, again, I just want to come on to the point raised by Councillor Warrington, and I'm glad, Chair, that you're agreeable to that letter being circulated. I find that really bizarre. I'm just going to be honest. I find that really bizarre that if a letter like that came in from a group of local businesses, that it wasn't, I don't use this term loosely, but if it wasn't shared, and it evidently wasn't shared, and I raised it at last month's PNR committee, I believe that letter was buried. And I don't know for what reason, but I would have thought that letter should have absolutely been shared with councillors. And immediately, as soon as it came in, that letter should have been shared with councillors. Because on something so significant, Chair, and I'm coming to an end on this point now, I appreciate Chief Executive wants to come in, but I just can not understand.
Have you got a question there, Mark?
I really struggle to understand why a letter so important and potentially with such important content wasn't shared with us immediately. In terms of the question, Chair, appreciate the delay, and it seems like there's going to be a further delay because I was led to believe that hopefully a decision could have been taken in early February. Why is it the project manager's report is so late in terms of, you know, this has been so long in the tooth now, and so many timelines have been presented and have slipped. I mean, I'm only on the council a year and a half now. Every time frame in relation to the Lakeland Forum has slipped. So it would be useful if we could get it categorically why this project manager's report is late. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Okay. Chair, I'll maybe just comment on, I'll answer the question, obviously, but I'll comment on a few of the points that have been made. And I think it is important. Maybe I'll put it this way. A basic principle in emergency management is that you deal with trusted sources of information. So the trusted sources of information in relation to Fermanagh Lakeland Forum, or indeed anything in relation to the council, are not necessarily in a weekly newspaper that has been found to be in breach of the editorial code in its reporting of this council. So any trusted information source that you need, the information will be provided to members and members will be able to form their opinion. In relation to the delay, certainly I accept what Councillor Ovens has said. Literally what is happening is the project managers are doing a line-by-line review of the tender assessment that has been submitted. I think it's 170 pages with all of the component cost elements. On each of those, they have to do a value for money and market testing, which is required of them by the contract. We certainly wish that report to be fully comprehensive because it is such an integral part of the full business case, because members will expect that due diligence to be done. And to be fair to the project managers, they can only form their opinion when they have concluded that process. I do know there were some absences on the contractor side, which may have delayed some of the information provision, but I know when through our own team, there's literally daily engagement and liaison. It is later than I would have liked, but there is no point in bringing an incomplete report. So as I said earlier in the meeting, Chair, as soon as we receive it, we will be able to programme the dates in. But what I don't want to commit to this evening is a date for something that we may, again, have to seek an extension. In terms of the wider point around the letter, and again, I think it's important that we clarify. So we receive hundreds, thousands of pieces of correspondence. The items that come to committee or to council are those matters typically which require a decision. The information that had been received, or the letter rather that had been received, reiterated points that have already been considered assessed, discussed at length and almost on a monthly basis in the council meeting. I did discuss with the chair. The chair was satisfied. It would be quite routine for us to respond to all manner of correspondence. So I think a lens is being applied to this. Certainly nothing is buried. There is absolutely nothing new in it. And indeed, many of the representations in the letter were also included in the public consultation report that came to the council when the original OBC decision was taken. So again, I think it's disingenuous and it's incorrect. And I suppose the final point, Chair, just in relation to the, and I suppose it may be beneficial, but just in terms of the, I suppose those who are watching or listening. So the investment decision is going to be based by members on a full business case. A number of inaccurate statements have been made this evening regarding financial matters. I think it is important again that I say any recommendation that comes to the council of any level of expenditure is based on evidence and affordability. And it is completely inaccurate to suggest, firstly, that officers would bring any recommendation to you that we would consider inappropriate. I have specific responsibilities as Chief Financial Officer, so I certainly would not allow a report of that nature to come before you. But it is also disingenuous to suggest that you can undertake capital works without borrowing. That is how this works. That will be a decision in due course when you have the information in front of you, but these half-baked sound bites are not correct.
Yeah. Councillor Gannon.
Thank you, Chair. I think the Ulster Unionist Party's position is as clear as day on this. They proposed to reverse every decision. And considering the decision was to go ahead with the forum, they proposed to not go ahead with the forum. They proposed to reject the 20 million Levelling Up Fund. That's what they proposed. It's black and white. It's clear as day. Now, the thing here is they're claiming that it'll hurt their decision, to try and rescind this. And the way they're going on about it, if we had went with that, we'd actually be hurting ratepayers if we had went with the Ulster Unionist Party position, because we'd have lost £20 million. We'd reverse the decision to make the forum, and people would be left with subpar leisure facilities that are past their time and need updated. It is just very clear from this that the Ulster Unionists don't believe in investing in this area and investing in this community. On a positive note, because let's ignore the minority here who are on another planet. This is something to look forward to. This is a great thing that we can have. It's state-of-the-art, unique facilities, and yeah, it'll cost money, but aren't we thrilled that this council is getting that much investment in this area? That is huge. That would never come from anyone else. We're crying out for investment like this. And I know and clearly the majority in this chamber, believe in investing in what is a public service. And you know what? I'm confident that this council can and will deliver this project, and it will be great for the community. And you know, in fact, I think in 5, 10, 15, 20 years' time, other councils will be coming to see the forum to learn about its design, its passive heights features, and how they can implement it. So let's be really positive about this, folks. The forum, the new forum, when complete, will be a brilliant asset to our community. And I know I can't wait to someday use it. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor John Philly.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points of clarity for me. There is an audit office in the north and an auditor general, and if we were doing something off the wall and bad stuff, they would be flagging this and stopping us from doing it. We're doing what all councils do. A large capital scheme, we're borrowing money and we're going to invest in our local community. I'm assuming there has been no flagging of this project. And on my second point of clarity, I'm pretty sure since I've ever been a councillor, the chair gets lots of emails and letters, and they are not sent
out to all councillors. And I'm pretty sure it's a right bit. And I'm kind of asking maybe that you don't. I don't want to be getting your inbox the whole time, John. You get the extra bit of money every year to read through these and do it. I don't think it's a good idea that we're seeing every single thing that's sent to you. If it's something important, it'll come to us.
Chair, just in relation, yes, the Audit Office would obviously scrutinise our role, our expenditure, as well as our accounts, and certainly no concerns have been raised of any kind. We had our audit panel prior to Christmas, and again, very comfortable in terms of where we were, a clean audit bill of health, and no recommendations for improvement.
You've been in before, Councillor Irvine.
It's just really clarified something that Councillor Feely said and was slightly clarified by Alison, our Chief Executive. Yes, the Audit Office does audit the use of public money, both in local authorities and in public departments, but it audits after the fact, not prior to the fact. So they would actually audit what has happened in this project after the project completion was carried through, not during the process.
No, Chair, I think I think there's two aspects. So the Fermanagh Lakeland Forum has been part of the Council's 5-year capital plan for a number of years. The 5-year capital plan is included with our annual accounts, which is reviewed by the Audit Office. I think what you're speaking about in terms of post-project or associated evaluation, but no, they have full oversight. They also do detailed meetings with me and indeed my team. So they have full oversight of our programme in advance, of our commitments, of our expenditure plans, of our level of affordability. All of those things are dealt with in advance. So that's not the case that they would come in. If there was raising a concern at some point subsequent, they may do a kind of a retrospective audit, but to suggest that they don't have full-sightedness prior to the decision is not correct.
Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. Two really quick points, and thanks for letting me in again. Just to clarify from Alison on the first point, was there money borrowed to build Omagh Leisure Centre? And secondly, this letter that came to the Chair, am I right in saying that one of the participants in the letter stated that it shouldn't have went out in their name? And so my point is, maybe Philip can clarify this, under that data protection legislation and that, are we entitled to see it unless we have been specifically asked in the letter to share it with all the councillors? Because if I got an email directed to me, am I then entitled to share it with the other 40 without requesting from the sender whether that was allowed?
I'll maybe clarify, Seamus, on my behalf. The email was sent as part of a group of people. It came from a person's personal email address, so it was from a group, but it came from one person, one individual's address. I don't think it's an issue in giving it out to all of you.
Chair, maybe just while Philip is, so I suppose just as the Chair has indicated, there are no personal signatories, there are company names as the signatories to the letter. There are no individuals, but the individual name was in relation to the release of the email itself. So I mean, I think I can look back on the wording of it, but I'd be satisfied enough that we could get around any GDPR provision, even by way of, if necessary, redaction. But on the point about borrowing, I would need to check my recollection. There was some amount of borrowing with Omagh, yes. It's 11 years ago now. But I mean, what I would say in relation, look, sure you all know this, in terms of general terms, you build your reserves, which we have done, you secure grant, which you do, which we have, and then if you need to borrow, you borrow. It's routine part of day-to-day public sector management. There is nothing unusual about this.
Okay, thank you. I think we've discussed this topic enough now, so move on, page 7. Page 8. Page 8. Okay, Councillor Donnelly, I'm not going to take a debate on what we had the last night. If you have proposals surrounding the correspondence around this, then go ahead. Okay.
Chair, I appreciate what you're saying, but I do feel a need to represent the views of my constituents, and my views are going to be specific to the contents of the letters. I'm not going to try and rehash the previous debate. Okay, thank you. First of all, in terms of the reply that we had from the PSNI, I think to an extent they've either misunderstood what it was that we communicated, or essentially they've attacked a straw man argument, because they make reference to the fact that the flags in question that we were making representations about are not illegal flags, is the terminology that they use. But at no stage was that ever the point or the case that we made. As far as I'm aware, there's no such thing as an illegal national flag. The point is the manner in which these flags or these emblems are abused in such a way that they result in the politicization and the tribalization of public space. And in some ways, the point that they enforce in that regard is irrelevant when we consider the response that we've received from the Department for Infrastructure, because they make it clear that they did consult the PSNI, and the reason why action was not forthcoming was as a result of a determination that they made and advice they gave that it shouldn't go ahead because, in their view, it would raise community tensions. Now, this is problematic for a number of reasons, because it basically means that whether it's a legal flag or not is basically irrelevant, because in this situation, if you cannot remove an Israeli flag, a country that for the most part has little to no relevance to the tribal divisions within the society, to the history of the society, the kind of things that present problems in terms of dealing with flags and emblems and all the rest of it, if you can't even do that, then there's no hope for removal of anything else in a context where you see the abuse of symbols and emblems. I mean, the PSNI can claim that they will deal with each matter on an individual basis, but if this situation can't even meet that threshold, I can't think of any situation where flags or emblems are being abused where it would be able to meet that threshold, because they're focused on this subjective interpretation of what how removal may cause tension, rather than what ought to be the case, which is how the erection of such things causes tension in the initial instance. And this should cause real concern to every member of this chamber for this reason, Chair. Because if it hasn't happened until now, it will happen in the future. Every member at some point will be contacted by the member of the public regarding material that has been erected on the public property that is causing concern within their community. And if this is the approach that is adopted by the authorities, no matter what it is, we are going to ultimately be powerless to be able to deal with that, because of the fact that we essentially have this gap where nobody is willing to accept responsibility for anything. And in that context, Chair, I would just like to point out the fact that there is now private members' legislation being brought through the legislation, through the Assembly by my colleague Paula Bradshaw, MLA, which is seeking to address a number of these matters. And I will engage the public out there to engage constructively in that process, because I think that there is a clear wish amongst most people out there to make sure that actually we do have all space being treated as shared space, where we have respectful celebration, which is time-bound, which is focused on celebration, and which is about making sure that we respect all people and the diversity within this society. And I would just also make comment on this, because I have seen a number of groups and individuals respond publicly in a somewhat knee-jerk way to the release of that consultation, encouraging their followers to reject any form of regulation, no matter how light touch it may be. Elements of that consultation deal with issues such as the flying of paramilitary flags, and I would seriously question any individual or any group that would be prepared to go out on the public stage and say that they think that there shouldn't be tighter regulation or indeed moves against the proliferation of flags and emblems that represent paramilitary and prescribed organizations. So, Chair, I'll just leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So you're proposing to note the correspondence? Yeah, thank you. Chief Executive wants to come in.
No, it's okay.
Well, Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, you know, we've talked about this issue a lot now, and it's clearly a very sensitive issue. We're all aware of that. It's been in the media quite a lot over the recent time, you know, for good reason. I think it's contentious, clearly I fully agree with everything that Councillor Donnelly has said. So when we're watching the things that we're seeing on the TV, it's hard not to feel a visceral reaction and, to be exercised about this. But just like everything else in the society, when we have dealt with sensitive issues in the past, there's a way of dealing with these things. And essentially is to level the playing field so that everyone has an equal and fair chance of expressing their views. And that's what we need to get to the place with when it comes to flags and emblems. Equality, not free for all. Free for all is not equality. We need to have a system in place where every community gets the chance to legally display their emblems in a non-offensive and inclusive way. And that's what we want to see. And that includes all flags, offensive or inoffensive, no matter what way people look at it. And that's why we spent nearly £1 million on something called the FICT report to look specifically at this issue, which came back with a number of very, very positive suggestions for how this might be dealt with. But just like some other reports in the past, that was money wasted as far as I'm concerned, because nothing has ever come of it. And we have to be brutally honest about why that is. And it's because the unionist parties were not going to implement that. They're not in favour of equality in this instance. They're not in favour of accepting the level playing field. So I welcome the bill brought forward by the Alliance Party. I look forward to seeing its progression through the Assembly, and I'm sure that all parties will have their say on that, and we'll see. The devil is probably in the detail. We'll see what comes of it, but it's a step in the right direction. And I hope that we can get to a place in the future where we can deal with these sensitive issues in the right and positive way and bring equality in these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you going to second the correspondence? Thank you.
Chair, I was just going to note, Councillor Donnelly had mentioned the private members' bill, so we are referencing that in next week's Policy and Resources Consultation Report, so there'll be an opportunity for members to note and consider it thereafter.
Okay, thank you, Chief Executive. Page 10, page 11, page 12, page 13, page 14.
We're just on page 14. We've received 2 letters in relation to the farming motion. Firstly, from the Minister of Finance, and that was received before Christmas. And really, the Minister setting out generally agreeing, obviously, with the Council's position, highlighting the wider budgetary constraints and also noting the representations that have made on a collective basis to the Treasury. The reference is also made, Chair, that if there were, and this was actually mentioned during our meeting, that if there was to be a ring fencing of the budget, that would be a matter for the Executive. And then we also, it's in your other folder from the Agriculture Minister, we have received his response, and append to that, Chair, is the representations that were made by the First Deputy First Minister, Finance Minister and Agriculture Minister to the Chancellor, essentially. To seek for the provisions made in the budget to be overturned. So I suppose just it is maybe worth noting, Chair, the Agriculture Minister highlights, I suppose, a number of efforts that he has made, but there doesn't appear to be any obvious route back for this to be overturned unless it's happening at a government level, and certainly I think limited enough prospect of there being a ring-fenced budget for the protection of farming families.
Okay, Councillor Barton.
Thank you. Chair, I'm wondering if you would give me a little bit of latitude in relation to Department of Infrastructure and Roads.
This is a DAERA matter?
Pardon?
This is a DAERA matter?
I know it's there, but I want to bring up another road.
What? Go on ahead. Yeah, I'm going to deal with this one here,
okay.
and then I'll come back to you.
Thank you.
Right. So Seamus, you're next.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, well, welcome the correspondence, but very disappointed with the content. I'm kind of at a loss to know why it would be so difficult to ring fence the agricultural budget. It was ring fenced every year up to now, given it might have been ring fenced by the British government, but Stormont has his own decision making, and if the will was there, there is absolutely no problem in them ring fencing it. I believe it would get cross-party support. I believe it should be brought to the executive if they're saying that it's only the executive can make the decision. So I would propose that we write then to the executive and ask them to ring fence it and to reiterate all our points again. And I'm just hopeful, because there was a number of our meetings where every party was in favour of it. So unless they were talking out of both sides of their mouth while they were talking to farmers, and then when they went out of the meetings, then they were talking another way, I think a ring fence budget was a given that they were all in favour of it. So I would propose that we do write back to whoever will listen and make them points, and make the points about that in all of our meetings that they were all in favour, so there should be no problem if it went to the executive.
Chair, could I just, we did write to the Executive Office following the adoption of the motion. Now, we haven't received a response as yet, but maybe if Councillor Green, I know there's other members coming in, just would be minded, I think possibly, so it's just not to repeat the course of action, but albeit it was very specific on the inheritance tax, if we were seeking, I suppose, for the ring fencing of the budgets, I think it would be your earlier point that the clarification, as I understand that they do have it in their gift to do this, so we can maybe clarify that. But also, I think the Minister of Finance's full intention is that after this budget, she will move to multi-annual budgets, possibly 3 years, and it may be that ring fencing over a multi-annual budget provides them with a greater opportunity. So maybe if Councillor Green was content, we could reflect that in the letter, which would sufficiently differentiate it from what's gone before.
Yeah, and maybe if necessary, if something already has went to the executive, and maybe included, but maybe even to each individual party leader to emphasise, that they all did support this, when they were talking to farmers. So hopefully nobody's talking out of both sides of their mouth.
Okay, thank you, Seamus. Anthony? Councillor Anthony.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks. Also disappointed with the letter as well, especially this inheritance tax is a major concern out there for people. But just I'll second Seamus' proposal and second that note as well if it is already proposed.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Eddie Reeve.
Forgive me.
Sorry, Eddie, I turned you off.
Thanks, Chair. Forgive me, I may have misread the letter, but from my understanding of the letter, it does state that all parties have agreed to the ring fencing of the money at Stormont level. So I feel like the proposal to write the letter is redundant, because the Minister has requested that, and he says that the block grant is treated as executive earmark funding for agriculture, agri, environment, fisheries and rural development. I'm pleased to confirm that on 19th of December, the executive agreed to my request to earmark this funding to my department for 25-26 and future years as part of the wider agreement. So I just wanted a bit of clarity on what exactly the letter would be about, because to me that seems like the funding for agriculture at Stormont level has actually been earmarked for future years.
I think, Chair, but I'm certainly open to contradiction. I think my reading of it was at a departmental level, just in terms of budget, whereas the motion actually related to specific interventions for farm relief for farmers. So I think it was, while there may be broad parameters around departmental level budgets, I think there is individual discretion within any minister as to how that is subdivided, would be my reading of it, but I'm certainly open to contradiction.
Sorry. So, and again, it might be a separate point, but is that, we were talking about it being previously ring fenced in that scenario, but was it agricultural funding as a whole ring fenced and raising by inflation? Was that ring fenced, or was that specific support ring fenced, or would that be a new support, a new ring fencing that hasn't happened before?
I think, Chair, where there may be some differences between what has gone before is that there was always the provision through what would have been EU funding, primarily through LEADER and other measures, so that a lot of direct farm support, for example, diversification, farm support and other activities, would actually have come through European funds. As a result of that, a lot of, shall we say, day-to-day expenditure within the department could actually be dealt with by the block grant. I think the difficulty, and I'm mindful there's many in the room who are better qualified than I in this subject, is that once we left the EU, there has been no replacement to that funding. So all of that pressure is now applied on, if you like, the normal budget. So I think the spirit of the proposal is that because farmers and farm families are being particularly adversely affected by budgetary decision, there needs to be a financial dividend for that to be equalised, and that currently has not been available. While there may be departmental budgets, it is to do with the day-to-day. And I think it's to recognise this almost a perfect storm between the inheritance tax and the loss of really all of the other farming subventions would be my understanding of it.
I take it you're going to clarify your proposal, Seamus?
Yeah, well, just what Eddie read out there, I didn't hear the word ring fenced. It isn't clarified for that it's ring fenced. Now, there can be a budget provided, but the minister can spend it on Lough Neagh, the entire money, whereas previously there was tier 1 and tier 2 of the grant. Tier 1 had to go specifically to farmers through the CAP. This other is not ring fenced. Even the entire budget going to the agriculture, I don't hear the word ring fence, and until I hear the word ring fence, no harm to any minister, I don't trust it. So that's the clarification I want. I want to see that word included in a letter.
Okay, thank you, Seamus. So you heard the proposal by Seamus, seconded by Anthony, that we write back seeking clarification that they're all going to support all the party leaders within the Stormont, and that they're going to support the ring fencing of the agricultural block grant for farmers' benefit. Roughly it, Seamus, yeah? All in agreement? Sorry, Chief Executive.
It's just one other agriculture-related matter, Chair. It's just to say, because I know members of the liaison group have raised this, we are awaiting a date for the liaison group to make representations to the Agriculture Committee. So we were in touch again just with the clerk before Christmas, and all of our MLAs who are on the committee have indicated their willingness to meet with the liaison group in advance, but we thought it would be better knowing the date of the committee meetings so that we could get those lined up. So it's just to assure members that it's progressing.
Okay, Councillor Barton, your road issue, please.
Yeah, thank you. This is in relation to point 14.1. It's just looking for a little bit of attitude, and they speak about the potential legal challenge to the A5. This is not a legal challenge I wish to speak about, but it's the A32 and the upgrading of the A32, the Omagh and Enniskillen Omagh Road. This is something that has been ongoing for a number of years from the new South West Acute Hospital was built. There were a number of schemes, up to 10 schemes I understand, to be completed on that road. And 2 or 3 of those schemes, yes, have been completed. There's still a substantial amount of work to be done on that road. And it seems to be that there's no money available. Every time one asks about the upgrading of this road, no money available, and it doesn't seem to be a priority. We have watched the A5 go make progress in leaps and bounds of recent. I am asking this council to try to put forward to the Minister of Infrastructure, look for an update in the A32 and ask, can money not be made available to upgrade some of the parts of this A5 that is so difficult to drive along, particularly for patients. Patients frequently have to be transferred between Omagh and Enniskillen, and lying in the back of an ambulance, some of those patients are very, very ill patients. Indeed, one recently, well, a year or so ago, spoke to me about the discomfort they were in being transferred to Enniskillen for treatment and back to Omagh. And I think we've got to consider those people. Also, it's the main route. We're Fermanagh Omagh Council, and it's the main route for many of our councillors between Fermanagh and Omagh, between Enniskillen and Omagh. So I do ask that the council try and do something about making progress on the upgrading of this A32. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barton. Councillor John Philly.
Thank you, Chair, and thank Councillor Barton for raising this issue again, which has been raised on numerous occasions, but it does no harm in doing another shot across their bows to remind them the importance of this. And it's also discussed with the Health Trust and stuff as well, because it was promised to us when the new Enniskillen Hospital was got. So again, just keep the pressure on them.
Thank you. And Councillor Deehan.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Councillor Barton for bringing this up. I mean, at virtually every meeting that we have with DFI Roads, members raise the issue of the A32. Councillor Feely is correct in what he says. The upgrade to this road was identified as a priority transportation route between Omagh and District and the new acute hospital at the Southwest acute site. So it is something that has real implications for our constituents. It's something that should have been prioritised. The information that we have is that many of those upgrades are shovel ready, and the only thing that is holding progress back is the lack of funding. So I think it is entirely appropriate that this council should make known to the Minister and to the department our concern about the delay and about the urgent need for funds to be made available for that upgrade. So I certainly support Councillor Barton's proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Deehan. Councillor Glenn Campbell in the chamber.
Chairman, I also want to add my support in respect of the proposal. I think that this upgrade has been long heralded really over the years, and we've had many, if you like, I don't know if you call it a false dawn, but we've seen small progress. It certainly hasn't met the expectations of an upgrade of a route that's so central in terms of our district, and it really does need. It's shovel ready, as has been said, and we really need to progress with the full upgrade of the A32. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Earl Thompson.
Thank you very much, Chair. I think all has been said there, but I just want to reinforce the point with regard to the A32. And it's quite a while ago, we had a cross-party delegation from this council, from Mid-Ulster, and from Derry City and Strabane. And we went to see the then Minister, Minister Danny Kennedy, at his office in Belfast. And we were talking about the A32 at that stage, and it was fully committed to, and we're still waiting. So there have been various ministers been there since that. So, but I support Councillor Barton and what she's saying. We need to keep it on the radar and keep the foot to the pedal, because it's very important we get that sorted out as the main route between the county towns of Omagh, Omagh, the county town of Tyrone, and Enniskillen, the county town of Fermanagh. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Roof.
Yeah, just to say support as well. We were there was another delegation there recently. Even after that, we met John O'Dowd, and we did raise it then too, and particularly the health aspect. And when those kind of 9 main projects were decided upon as to what were the main priorities for DFI, we asked, well, were the health obligations for the A32 taken into account, and they couldn't answer that, and I haven't really got a clear answer since. And the reality is that they weren't. And that should have been a key factor in promoting the A32 to one of those 9 projects that were put forward as priority. And I would be keen to keep the pressure on and to ensure that when the next set of funding does become available, that is high up the list of priorities. Thanks.
Thank you. Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chair. Well, Councillor Roof has just picked up on the point. We did relatively recently meet with the Minister O'Dowd, and this was one of the items on the agenda. And I think we can certainly reflect this in the letter. And again, I'm open to contradiction, but my understanding from that meeting was that the Minister had said that the only scheme that is now ready that hasn't been undertaken was Cornamuck. So the rest will have to be worked from scratch. So I think everything else that had been committed to has been done. There was no agreement in the health business case that this work would be progressed, even though that was said at the time. So even if an unlimited pot became available, the only scheme, as I understand it, on the A32 that can proceed now is Cornamuck. So I think maybe in the letter we would just get formal confirmation of that and ask for the status of each of the other work packages. And certainly I know from the work on the Enniskillen bypass, the department will only be able to put schemes out when they have funding certainty. But I think there is a piece now about getting those in the pipeline, but I think there's only one scheme left. But we'll check that, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Sure. Councillor Thompson, quickly.
Very quickly. Yep. And the part that was left out there was the pronunciations right there. Kilgorton, the league. Basically Mossfield Street. It was at that particular junction that was left out. And people are right. I went back as far as Danny Kennedy, but it's been raised with every minister since, and including Minister O'Dowd in very, very recent times. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Eric. So we're all happy with Councillor Barton's proposal that we write to the Minister, seconded by Councillor Feely. All agreed? Great, thank you. Page 15. Page 16.
Chair, just on page 16, we have a response from the Education Minister dated the 19th of December, just thanking the Council for the update on the motion, setting out then the scope of the programme of RAISE and noting that it hasn't actually commenced yet and no funding has been allocated at any point, so it's still under consideration.
Okay. Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to note that letter from the Education Minister. A bit disappointed that he didn't really seem to take on board what we were saying. We were just sort of highlighting the fact that we support the intention of this scheme, what it's trying to achieve, but that it's not going to achieve what it wants to because it's not targeted in the right way. We often talk about, funding is very, very scarce at the minute, and we're really struggling to fund decent schemes like this here. So when you get that money, and we were very, very glad to get that money from the shared island unit, we have to make every single penny of that count. And the best way to do that is to target it where it's needed most. That's the point. And this scheme, unfortunately, will not reach all the people that need it the most, I think. But on the back of that, anyway, I think, I'm interested in this scheme to see what impact it will have. And I wonder maybe could we propose to write to the Department of Education and ask for a briefing from the officials on this scheme, how it's going to be implemented here in Fermanagh and Omagh, and the potential benefits that we might get out of it. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'm not going to second her for that. Councillor Tom McGuire. All agreement? Thank you. So Also on page 18, we have correspondence 18.1.
So Chair, we've page 17, we've two letters. Item 18.1 is on the We Care project. Firstly from RQIA, and then the response from the Trust just came in earlier today, so it's in the other folder. So I suppose in relation to the RQIA letter, they have advised that we really would be best to take forward the matter with the Trust, but also to make inquiries with SPPG, who commission services and who are engaged in this process. And I suppose in relation to the response from the Trust Chair, they have advised that it's recognition there's specific pressures, the repurposing on a temporary basis of Avalon House for children requiring full-time care. And they've also referenced the co-design element that's being undertaken and some engagement with SPPG. So I know, Chair, I think yourself, Councillor McElduff, may have had specific representations on this matter, so we may need to explore it further, but those are the updates as received.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor McElduff.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yourself as Chair and myself, we took the initiative of meeting with the We Care project, and this was probably the biggest single item that was raised by a group of parents with us. And earlier today, I read up on it more, and very powerful testimony from parents about previously being able to enjoy 4 times a year, 48 hours break, and once a year they would get a full week. They were entitled to that. And, you know, if there was a family function or something like that, they could book or schedule short-term respite care for themselves, much needed. And then obviously things changed, and the RQAA have stepped in and said you can't have long-term residential and short-term residential side by side in the one facility. So that's the crux of the matter. Unbelievable, powerful testimony from parents about their need to recharge their batteries and but wanting to be secure in the knowledge that their child is being cared for in the best possible way. This facility that was set up in 2011, soft outdoor play, multi-sensory room, 20 staff, 2.2 million investment, and a facility specifically for children aged 5 to 18. So you can imagine that that was a godsend for families, but then that was taken away from them. So we do need to keep our eye on this one very, very sharp. I must study now better than I have already the Trust response, but the RQAA position, you know, that's a matter of fact. I propose that we now write to the Department of Health, SPPG, asking for clarity in relation to their remit in this matter and what steps are being taken to reinstate the availability of short-term respite care for families in the southern sector of the Western Health Trust. Understand a similar problem then arose in the northern sector with a cottage that was set aside for that purpose as well, but we'll concentrate for now on the southern sector of the Western Health Trust. If necessary, you know, I think we should be looking at convening a round table meeting involving all the key players, the Trust, the SPPG and RQIA, but we'll just wait on the response from the SPPG before we take our next step. So that would be my proposal. Chair, thank you.
Thank you. And I mean, one of the things was really, this isn't for jollies, this was for people just to get a night's sleep without being disturbed by the needs of their family member. And I thought it was very, very empowering to hear what those parents and guardians were telling us. So totally agree, Barry. I'm going to bring Mark Obbins in very quickly because I think he's got a certain action to.
Yes, Chair, sorry, I'd missed declarations at the start of the meeting, just to declare on this. And then when I'm just on it, I think there's a further item, 15.3, a letter from IAS. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Next we go to Councillor David Mahan online.
Thank you, Chair. It was to come in just under, with a bit of latitude, under the Education Minister and the last topic there, Chair, if it's allowed.
I'll come back to you then.
Thank you.
Is that okay? Councillor Deacon?
Well, thank you, Chair, and I want to thank you and Councillor McElduff for the initiative that you took in that regard, and to second Councillor McElduff's proposals. Councillor McElduff is quite correct in what he says in terms of, you know, how committed parents and guardians are in caring for their family members. You know, it's a 24 hours, 365 days a year task, and the provision of respite and short breaks is absolutely vital to those families, really, to prevent burnout. And I think that should be recognised by the Department of Health, by SPPG, and I think it's fitting that we as a council should do all within our power to support those families. Avalon House is a fantastic facility, state of the art, and is very much valued by the community. So I think we need to have clarification regarding ongoing provision for short-term breaks and longer-term support for these families and these children. So happy to second Councillor McElduff's proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And next we go to Councillor Adam Gannon.
Thank you, Chair, and it's good to get responses on this. I want to reference in particular the Western Trust's response. It does say that they've met with parents groups and had workshops in Derry and Omagh areas, and they have indicated that they're going to have future workshops, but they don't indicate that there'll be one in Fermanagh. And I know Avalon House was used by many families in Fermanagh, and they very much valued it for the reasons that have been outlined in terms of just respite and recovery. So I'd actually like just to propose that we write back to the Trust just to clarify and to ask if maybe they've had one already, but if they've had one or if they're planning to have a parental workshop in the Fermanagh area as well. Sometimes the Trust does tend to forget us in Fermanagh, and if not, if they do not have one planned, that they schedule one as a matter of urgency, because it's important for these facilities and any plans to consider accessibility from this part of the district. Chair, on the RQIA letter, I have a separate proposal to go through on it, and it's actually also ties in with a later piece of correspondence around the consultation on the hospital reconfiguration, but it's to write to RQIA and the Minister. You might want to take it separately because it is separate to the RQIA. I'll go with how you wish to go, Chair.
I think I'll come back to it under AOP.
Okay, will it just come back in on the other piece of correspondence?
I think there's another letter I can.
Yeah,
actually
that's
bring
okay,
on.
Chair.
Okay,
Thank you.
So I'll take that. Councillor Barton.
Thank you. My comments are just in relation to the caring role. Indeed, Avalon House is very much appreciated by parents, many parents in this area. This caring role is 24/7, and these parents need support. They need time out. After all, we have to think of their own well-being and mental health, and support for them. I think it's something that we must support and needs to be recognised.
Okay, thank you. So I'm actually going to go back to Barry. Are you happy enough to include Adam's bit about the consultation for Fermanagh as part of the correspondence? He is. And Councillor Deacon, are you? No. Oh, sorry, we're going to. So, Barry, would you just second it? I will keep it separate. Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Mahan, I realize you want to come in under education. If this is to do with LAC, I've already got an item in AOP that's been raised by another councillor. You're muted. You're mute. Okay. Okay. Adam, sorry. Okay, sorry.
So, Chair, then just at item 18.3, Storm Burt, you'll have seen the response from the Minister regarding the impacts and the willingness to have a meeting. So just to advise, we're currently working on the basis, Chair, that meeting will be Monday the 27th of January at 4 o'clock, from 4 to 5, a virtual meeting in the first instance. We're just awaiting formal confirmation that that suits Donegal. We think it does, but we will work on that basis. So we will send the invitations.
Councillor Philip.
Just for a point of information, the Minister didn't really mention road service. Are we still trying to include road service?
We are, but I suppose it was, we focus mainly on rivers, to be fair, but yes, we will include roads within that.
Okay, thank you. Be prepared to note, and then, yeah, and I need a seconder. Councillor Barton, thank you. Page 18. Okay. So I'm on to the minutes of the Planning Committee on the 20th of November, and that was Councillor Maguire. So for accuracy, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12, page 13, page 14, page 15, and Councillor Maguire.
Gurmaga I propose the minutes, Chair. Gurmaga.
And seconded by Councillor Thompson. So next we'll go through matters arising. Yep. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12, page 13, page 14, and page 15. Okay. Next, we go to the Environmental Service Committee held on Wednesday, the 4th of December. Councillor McPhillips chaired that. So for accuracy, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9. Garvin?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Thank you. And seconded Councillor Robinson. Matters arising, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, 6, page 7, page 8, page 9. Thank you. Page 9, Councillor McElduff.
I'm going to go to, I think it's item 7.9. I wonder if our director, John Hughes, is able to maybe help us interpret what's going on there at 7.9, because there's been a lot of focus in OBA on parking and loading bays and all that kind of thing. And John has been involved in several meetings about that topic, you know. Just wondering if that's relevant to any of the stuff that we met about in the recent past. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Director.
Thank you, Chair. The specific piece of correspondence is referenced to 7.9. It was regularising and the abandonment of an historic disabled parking bay. The wider points that Councillor McElduff's referring to, there has been, there was considerable good progress in the mouth of Christmas in terms of the provision of additional off-street car parking in Omagh, and there was correspondence then has also come in from DFI. That'll be, I think it's reported to the Environmental Services around their undertaking a review of the clearway at John Street, which had been referenced previously as well. But this specific piece of correspondence was simply regularising an abandoned disabled parking bay on the High Street in Omagh.
We'll cover the clearway bit later on.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Councillor Barton.
Yeah, I'm wondering again if you could give me some latitude in relation to waste and brown bins. Under
Yeah, I'll let you come back in under AOB under that.
Okay.
I'll keep on going here. So page So next we go to the Regeneration and Community Committee, Tuesday the 10th of December. And that was chaired pro tem by Anne-Marie Donnelly and then Councillor Stephen Donnelly. So page 1, this is for accuracy, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10. Councillor Donnelly? Yeah. Happy to propose?
Happy to propose.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson, seconded. Matters arising, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page... Councillor McIndoe?
Thank you, Chair. On the local change fund, that's funding a grant scheme, I think emanating from the Executive Office for local organisations who are involved in campaigning to raise awareness about and end violence against women and girls. Maybe ask our Director, John Boyle, if possible, through you, Chair, how would those organisations who are involved in this work learn of this opportunity?
Go ahead, please, John.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Yeah, the local change fund will come into effect effectively on the 1st of April 2025 of this year. We will be promoting it. You will be aware that in advance of that there is funding available in this year, 45,000, which Oma Women's Aid and Fermanagh Women's Aid will be going out around community, raising awareness of the fund that is becoming available. And we will also be promoting it through all our normal channels. And we will be working with those organisations in the lead up to the grant scheme becoming available on the 1st of April in order to ensure there is total awareness of the funding that is becoming available for the 25-26 year.
Page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10. Okay. Next we go to the Policy and Resources Committee, Wednesday the 11th of December, Councillor Victor Warrington. For accuracy, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8. Happy to propose. I'm seconder. Councillor Hawkes, thank you. So we go. Matters arising, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7. Thank you.
Chair, just on page 7, the committee had given approval that we would write to the Communities Minister in relation to the update on the independent review of the roles and responsibilities of councillors, just given the input to the estimates process. So just to confirm, we've received a response from the Minister dated 7th of January asking or advising that he has asked his officials to expedite their consideration of the report and to provide him with urgent advice, and we will be updated in due course. So just for noting, please, Chair.
Okay. So, proposer to note. Councillor Thompson, I'm seconder. Councillor Warrington. Thank you. So page 8. Thank you. Next we go to the Plan Committee held on the 12th of December. Councillor Maguire chaired. Page 1. For accuracy, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12, page 13, page 14, page 15, page 16, page 17, page 18, page 19, page 20. Thank you. Oh, Councillor Maguire, propose.
Gormagra Carley, I'm Mullen and Mentursky. I propose the minutes, Chair. Gormagra.
Seconder, Councillor Irvine. Thank you. Matters arising, page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12, 13, page 14, 15, page 16, 17, page 18, page 19, page 20. Okay. So now we're, so now we're correspondence, on page, so that's 15. And
So Chair, just as referenced earlier, a letter from the Divisional Roads Manager, and this is regarding, we've been asked to clarify the process about the review of the Clearway legislation, John Street. So Mr Healy has set out the arrangements, and I suppose noting that it will require further consultation with businesses, police and the council, and if agreement was reached, there will be a legislative change, so the estimation would be up to a year before change would happen in that regard.
okay, Councillor McAuliffe.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And propose to note the correspondence. Critically, it says here it'll require further consultation, and the businesses are key stakeholders in the John Street area. Again, a number of us have been involved in meetings with the businesses impacted, and I just want to be assured that this will happen. There will be proper consultation with the businesses, and in the meantime, if it's continuing to operate the way it is, that there be much clearer signage put up by DFI Roads to explain what exactly is happening at that location, because the businesses and the business owners and staff are like sentries running out to tell people not to park there at particular times of the day. It's taken up an inordinate amount of their energy and time and focus, and a lot of it is down to poor signage. But the views that are held by some of the businesses, they need to be heard in this process. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair, and I'll second the noting of the correspondence from Daniel Healy, and agree with Councillor McInduff's comments as well, that the businesses in the John Street area need to be fully engaged with in this process as we move forward. So happy to second that as well.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Deacon online.
Yeah, and happy to support, Chair. And just to reiterate that the business community in John Street are really feeling the pressure and feel very much aggrieved about this urban clearway. So I do think that whilst traffic congestion in Omagh generally remains a problem, I think that this particular urban clearway needs to be reviewed. And if it takes a year, so be it, but it needs to happen. And I agree that the business community needs to be consulted very extensively on it. So happy to support, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You've heard the proposal by Councillor McInduff, seconded by Councillor Thompson. All in agreement? Thank you. Next correspondence.
Chair, so this is a notice of motion from Newry Morning Down regarding gender-based violence against women, which was adopted by their council in December. So recommending, Chair, that that would be noted.
Councillor Coyle.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I'd like to propose a noting of this, but also to support it, and that when these questions are sent off to the different departments, that the answer that Newry Morning Down get, that we can also get that the responses back as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hayes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to second the noting and to second Councillor Coyle's proposal that we'd show our support and hopefully get a response back when Newry Morning Down get a response back. And I just think, just to say, it's hard not to notice the massive increase in violence against women. It's on weekly on our news, you know, sometimes daily, unfortunately. There was 7 women murdered in the North in 2024, 5 of which were in a period of only over 7 weeks. So, yeah, just to support then, second the noting and support Councillor Coyle's proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McCann.
Thank you. Just to congratulate the council following the 16 days of activism. There's very good social media presence during them 16 days, and of course the town hall and the Stool Arts Centre was lit up in December as well. So it all raises awareness. I think we've all got our part to play, males as well, obviously, to bring this to an end. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McCann. So you heard the proposal by Councillor Coyle that we write back supporting the motion and seeking any updates from Yuri and Moore, and that was seconded by Councillor Hayes. All in agreement? Thank you.
Chair, I know the motion refers to the Lord Chief Justice. I'm assuming they mean the Lady Chief Justice in relation here, and then there may be provision separately for England, so we would action that accordingly, just to note that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Last piece of correspondence.
Okay, we just a couple as well, another.
Sorry,
Chair, but
Anne-Marie, this is to do with ambulances. I'm not sure how comfortable you are. I'm speaking to Councillor Fitzgerald here at the moment. Councillor Anne-Marie Fitzgerald. She seems to have gone off there. If she comes back on, I'll speak to her. Okay.
So, Chair, included in your pack is the response, the email response from Dr. Ruddle, who's the medical director. So and it had been suggested that in the first instance I would contact him. So I spoke to him and his colleague Lynn Charlton prior to this meeting, and I'll just give you a summary, Chair. So firstly, in relation to the current arrangements around the booking of ambulance provision, this is based on the 2007 Department of Health document regarding transport strategy, and the decision around those bookings may only be taken by medical practitioners. There is within the current consultation on the reconfiguration of hospitals specific comment on the transport strategy, and it may be something that we would include within our response, which actually would widen the definition as to who could make those referrals, because that clearly would present maybe somewhat of a constraint on general practice at the moment. But in relation to the general points that were set out in our letter, Chair, and the commentary at the meeting, they were a little surprised about the perception of a service gap, because that would not correlate with their data. So in relation to their current figures, if they were correlated to the end of the financial year, non-emergency journeys would actually exceed their 23-24 year of activity. They also have a significantly lower rate of cancellations, and since October of last year have been working on targeted interventions, which means they would have a cancellation of approximately 1 a day, about 30 a month, which had previously been 150 a month or thereabouts. So their evidence would suggest there is no gap, but they're obviously happy to take specific cases. And finally, in relation to the timeliness, and at the meeting that this was discussed, Chair, there was specific reference, for example, around blood transfusions, time-bound appointments and early appointments. They do a lot of engagement, and indeed they're currently working on a co-production of service model, but they would have very limited complaints from our area and indeed west of the Bann. And they're currently finalising really a demand-based model based on appointment time. So all of that said, Chair, they are very happy to meet with the council. If it is your preference to meet, they would prefer to do so in person. There's clearly a lot of evidence and statistics behind their position. And if there are specific patient or individual cases, obviously suitably anonymised, they would appreciate that in advance so that they could take forward, I suppose, to have the relevant information on the evening. So that's the update from the conversation, Chair. It's really now a matter for members if we would like a substantive written response or for us to proceed to arrange a meeting with Dr. Ruddle and his colleagues.
Okay. Councillor Deacon online.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Alison for her report and for her engagement with Dr. Ruddle. the medical director of the Northern Ireland Ambulance Service. Well, first of all, I want to propose that we note his correspondence. I think we are all aware of the challenges faced by the Northern Ireland Ambulance Service and the impact that that service delivery has on patient care, and it is a cause for concern for all of us. So I would be proposing that we do accept his offer of a face-to-face meeting with the council, where we can, have a forum where we can have our questions answered and our concerns raised. I know they are operating in a very challenging environment, particularly since we're facing such huge winter pressures at the moment. In relation to the specific matter, it's good news that the non-emergency provision for the Western area has actually increased. But this is a very specific gap in service provision, which does impact quite significantly on patient care, and that's why I wanted to raise it specifically. But certainly we can do that in the context of a face-to-face meeting. I think the crux of the matter really relates to the timing of the transportation of care, so that patients can avail of day case procedures where the day case facility is only open for a limited period of time, so that the transportation timing is really critical. But those are issues that could be discussed in more detail at a face-to-face meeting. So I would be happy to propose that, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Deehan. Councillor Stephen Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair, and likewise, I'm happy to second the correspondence, and I think that it would be useful actually to try and get further information on some of those interventions that they're talking about to try and help address the issue. And while I accept the assertion that they make, I think that they do also equally concede that there are capacity issues that they're dealing with across Northern Ireland. I suppose just as a local chamber, we're doing everything we can to make sure that we support the ambulance service to be able to actually get that capacity. And so I think this is actually quite timely, because I'm aware that this week Alliance did bring forward a motion to the Assembly calling on the Health Minister to bring forward proposals with respect to expanding that capacity, as well as introducing a workforce plan to be able to address some of these wider challenges. So happy to second that, Chair.
Okay, thank you. You all heard Councillor Deegan's proposal that we do have a meeting with the doctor, all in agreement. Thank you. Final piece of correspondence.
So, sorry, Chair, in the other folder, we dealt with the first and indeed the third item. So the second item is from the Northern Health Trust, and this is in relation to the public events associated with the hospital reconfiguration consultation, which was referenced by a couple of members earlier. Chair, I received this yesterday. So to the best of my knowledge, this is the only correspondence we have received in relation to these events. I suppose the key matters, just to draw to your attention, the event for the Western Trust is tomorrow evening in the Silver Birch Hotel. It is, I know that would clash for some of you with environmental services, from 7 to 9 p.m. We will have officers in attendance. The online meeting is on Tuesday the 11th. Which I know would also clash for RNC for some of you next month. There are other meetings that are identified, and as I understand it, the content at each will be the same in terms of the consultation document. So just sharing really for information, Chair, at this point.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gannon, you were indicating on this earlier?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is linked with RQIA. The reason I want to speak on this, Chair, is because this consultation is directly linked, in my opinion, to the RQIA report into the pathways associated with the withdrawal of emergency general surgery. And I'll explain the reasoning for that. Just to note, that that report, RQIA report, has not been released yet, despite, as far as I am aware, being ready for release since September of 24. So it's been ready for quite a while, and it's being held back for some reason. And the reason why this is important and linked to the wider consultation is because the reconfiguration of hospital services will have an impact on all services available at all hospitals. And this report will have a massive, could have a massive say in the impact on a rural area of changing and removing such a vital service such as emergency general surgery. And this consultation finishes on the 20th of the 2nd, which isn't that far away in the grand scheme of things, Chair. And I do think it's ridiculous that this hasn't been released at this point. So, Chair, I'd like to propose that we write firstly to RQIA to ask if they know why their report has not yet been released, and secondly, to write to the Minister to ask why it has not yet been released and to ask for its urgent release, and that the consultation date is extended until such a time as the report from the RQIA is released, with sufficient time for it to be considered by members of the public and other stakeholders such as this council. I think it's key that if you're going to consult on something as huge as this, all the information should be made available to the public. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Seamus Green.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with Councillor Gannon in all his points. I suppose I would hope that the department would be open and transparent. I'd be shocked that if anyone involved in the Department of Health would be withholding a report like this, you know, while there's a consultation going on. We're all in this chamber really all for transparency, and I'd be shocked, you know, if any councillor, you know, had anything to do with the department and was withholding a report as important as this. So I presume this will make its way back to the Minister. If there's anyone here with any influence, maybe they'd be able to whisper in the Minister's ear tomorrow, you know, that this needs to be put out to the public domain ASAP. I suppose maybe I got it wrong there, that it was the Northern Trust that wrote to us in relation to these events, that our own Western Trust didn't write to us. I find that, if that is the case, rather shocking. And I would almost tend to, if that is correct, write to them with our disgust that we weren't made aware of it, that it took another trust to actually inform us.
Chair, just on that latter point, Councillor Green is correct. It is a Northern Trust. I think it is, though, important to be clear. This is a departmental consultation, so it's not really the role of any of the trust to notify us, but we certainly received no notification that I'm aware of from the department. Now, equally, we didn't from the trust, but it would be, I think, the department's role in the first instance.
Thanks, Chair, for letting me in. Well, then, can we write to the Minister also and add in our disgust that the Minister or none of his menus have let us know? You know, you'd think that'd be common courtesy to the local government and the elected reps that's representing the people. You know, it just goes to show you, it'd be great if we had somebody there within the department to be able to keep an eye on this and have everything open and transparent, but unfortunately we don't.
Are you happy to include all that, Adam? Thank you. Councillor McGrath.
It's a second. A second, Adam.
Right. Okay, Seamus is ready. Okay. So you heard Adam, Councillor Gallon's proposals to write to the RQAI and the Minister asking about the release of the report, and also Councillor Green's clarification on the events and how that was publicised. All in agreement? Thank you. So that's all the correspondence covered. Next we go to notions of motion. So the first motion, 16.1, is the sports grants, and that's Councillor Barry McElduff. 5 minutes, Barry.
Thank you, Gurbi Agricarly. I want to put forward this motion, and there are 3 elements in it. It's us using our lobbying function. It's not calling on this council to direct spend It's lobbying Sport NI and the Department for Communities. First part of the motion reminds us that last year the Irish government committed a significant amount of money to sports clubs and facilities during 2024 through the Community Sport Facilities Fund. Prior to that, it was known as the Sports Capital and Equipment Programme. And so there's a huge difference, huge disparity, north and south, in terms of the amount of money that is made available to sports clubs. So that's why the second part of the motion calls on the Department for Communities and Sport NI to work in partnership to reintroduce a similar sports capital grants programme in this region. Now, I remember a time, it might be 15 years ago, when there was that type of grant programme in place, and it was equal and eligible and free for anybody to apply to it. You know, you'd have to meet certain conditions or whatever. But it seems to have gone off the boil, the idea that Sport NI would preside over a sports capital grants programme. Now, and maybe more recently, there was another programme, multi-facility grant. But anybody I have spoken to in this field, they say that the process was very, very cumbersome in the past. And they point to the fact that many club facilities no longer are fit for purpose to cater for the growing needs in communities. And, you know, and throughout our council area, I believe that sport and clubs are the glue that hold together many, many communities. And volunteers are stretched with fundraising. You know, they're giving up months and months of their lives, going door to door, selling tickets to maintain facilities, and that's simply not sustainable. So no fund whatsoever, I believe, in place since 2018, and long before that, a suitable programme was in place. There's a gap there now. Communities and clubs are struggling to maintain and expand facilities despite increasing membership and demands. I was speaking to one volunteer with a sporting club in the past week, and he told me that within his club there were 500 young people playing sport in a rural community. And that's all done voluntary, it's all managed voluntary. And oftentimes you have the wider community use of facilities as well. And there was a sport and physical activity strategy launched in March of 22, but no accompanying funding for these facilities. Again, I'll repeat that point, that previous funding rounds years ago, not months ago, involved a lot of red tape, overly complex application processes. And obviously, if there was to be a new grant scheme, the process should be simplified. So finally, I would say that I think we all know inherently that sports clubs in our communities add unbelievable social and economic value, and they do act as a social and economic stimulus for communities. And this point as well, the amount of voluntary commitment is probably the envy of other countries in the world. I mean, I'll give you a local example of voluntary effort and voluntary fundraising, and I'll spare the blushes of the Dromore people, but Dromore Gaelic Football Club raised £672,000 in a draw last year for the benefit of their club and community and facilities. And the amount of effort that was involved in that fundraising is phenomenal. So anyway, I'll come to a conclusion. We need Sport NI to reintroduce capital sports grants, and this council could play a very, very good role in asking DFC, the Department for Communities, and its arm's length body, Sport NI, to do that very thing. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Just exactly within the time. Next we go to seconder, Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll not take too long. Very, very put everything very well there. Some of the points I was going to bring up myself. I had been looking it up, and since 2020, the Irish government has invested £300 million in sports clubs in the Irish Republic. It's to the beneficial. I was looking at it's Gaelic games, athletics, basketball, rugby, hockey, swimming, football, cricket, cycling. It's right across the spectrum that has benefit from this. And then I was looking up, there was a report done on what the benefits of that is. And it was reckoned that the 300 million that was spent had a £3.7 billion benefit to the economy. So this pays for itself 10 times over. I think that the fact that there's been no sport NI grant system for sports clubs right across the spectrum we're really missing a trick in the north here. Again, it shows the backward thinking that we have. We really need to get up front on this here, and we mightn't be able to match the investment that the South are given, but we really need to start and invest in our sports clubs in the north, because they really are way ahead of us. They're doing their best, and as Barry said, we have volunteers out for months at a time trying to provide the facilities that at least other organisations should be. And I suppose I'd point to the fact that there's potentially our council is providing a grant to sports and community groups in the coming year if it gets passed in the council. And it's terrible that local volunteers and the local council has to step in and try to fill the void. But I think the department needs to step up and provide this money. So I'm more than happy to second the motion.
Thank you, Seamus. Next we go to Councillor David Mahan. You're still muted, David.
I'm not.
Have you turned your volume down, David? Sorry, we're not getting anything in the chamber here.
All right, Chair.
You're coming up there a wee bit.
Can you hear me there?
You're very faint.
Is it okay if I stop the video, see if it helps?
Yeah, I'll go to Councillor Deacon and come back to you if that's okay. Okay. Councillor Deacon.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And just to say that I was able to hear Councillor Mahan just now. No, I want to thank Councillor McElduff and Councillor Green for bringing forth this motion. It's really, really important. And, you know, I mean, the investment in the Republic of Ireland in their sporting facilities and sports clubs is really to be admired. And it's a position that I think that we should replicate here in Northern Ireland. There's no doubt that our sporting organisations are a real credit, and the input of volunteers just really shows how committed they are to their local sporting facilities and communities. Really, really impressive. But I think that they do need support. And I think the Department for Communities do need to recognise the very positive contribution that sporting clubs make to our society, how they contribute to social and economic well-being, and very importantly, to encourage people to become involved in sporting activities has real benefits for physical and mental health and well-being. So it would be really a very important investment to make, and I wholeheartedly support the motion, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to you now, Councillor Mahan, see how we're working now.
Thank you, Chair. Is that any better?
That's it. That's us now.
Thank you. Sport provides a forum to learn skills such as discipline, confidence and leadership, and it teaches core principles such as tolerance, cooperation and respect. This is true across all age groups. Each person in the room, I'm sure, can point to sporting organisations within their own district who are making a huge positive impact. The importance of sport has been recognised in the draft programme for government by the executive, and they are wanting to maximise sports potential and community well-being and to support physical and mental health. The important role that sport plays in the lives of young people has been recognised by our DEP Education Minister, as in December 24, Paul Given announced funding of £10 million for outdoor play equipment for every nursery and primary school. There will also be a focus on pitches and sports halls at post-primary schools. This focus on PE will be supplemented by specific annual investment priorities to refresh resources and equipment more widely. This motion comes at a time when we, as a council, are in the midst of a rate-setting process. Undoubtedly, there is much we would like to see prioritised and delivered. However, delivery depends on the budget available and economic reality. The same is true for the executive departments. In the 2024-25 budget set in April 24, the Department of Communities was allocated a total capital budget of £133.4 million. We do indeed support any calls to help grow and support sporting organisations, especially those trying to increase accessibility. However, we must also be mindful of the economic reality that we are faced with. So we as a party are in favour of the motion this evening and thank the members for bringing it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we go to Councillor Eddie Roof in the chamber.
Thanks, Chair, and I thank the councillors for bringing this motion forward. Sports clubs across this district consistently punch above their weight, and that point has never been clearer with the upcoming All-Ireland finals for both my own Inniskin Rugby Club and Aaron Kieran. The success of these clubs is based upon the huge volume of work from volunteers, and all involved should be commended. However, the ability to provide services to a high standard for locals requires adequate funding to local clubs. Funding to local clubs is an investment in local communities, in their health, both physically and mentally, in providing excellent facilities for local children, reducing antisocial behaviour, and helping develop future sporting excellence on the global stage. And we only really have to look at our recent cohort of athletes who represented us at the Olympics to see what we are capable of when the adequate resources are available. Too many facilities locally have seen little or no central funding from Stormont in quite some time, and they rely heavily on the continued refurbishment by volunteers. And quite a few at this stage are in desperate need of upgrade. Therefore, the Alliance Party welcomes this motion, and we hope to see a positive response from the Community Minister. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we go to Councillor Adam Gannon.
Thank you, Chair, and I welcome this motion. Quite often our sports clubs are at the centre of our communities. They play a massive role in life in both rural and more urban areas. And quite often, especially with large projects, they do find it very difficult to get money together. Being involved in a local club myself, I know how much time and effort goes into fundraising. It's never ending, as I'm sure many other people in this chamber know. And the thing is, new facilities that are provided by such capital grants would have massive community value. They're not just used for sports, they're used by basically everyone in most communities. And that, of course, obviously has the benefit to the club, but social and health benefits as well to the wider community. So happy to support the motion, Chair.
Okay, next we go to Councillor Victor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, sport plays a very important part in our communities, and certainly I'm well aware locally to myself. We have a very active rugby club and a very active football club, who offer a huge amount of facilities and work towards young people, especially. Obviously, sport is very important to everybody's physical and mental well-being, and for that reason, it's imperative that these clubs are given a fair amount of money that they need. Obviously, it is my understanding, and I proved to be corrected on this, that Sports NI actually recently handed back some money that they didn't use, which I find a wee bit bizarre. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I know the amount of work that the local clubs, again, going back especially to my own area, put into fundraising. It's ongoing, and you only have to look at their training sessions in both their areas, the amount of young people, and when I say an amount, I'm talking hundreds of young people who attends their different training sessions. So yes, certainly the Ulster Unionist Party will be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go back to Councillor McElduff to sum up, you are right there, Victor, in raising that point. I welcome this motion, and I, as somebody who's heavily involved in sport, the importance of this capital money is unreal on how that can develop clubs. I have serious concerns around Sport NI's ability as a public body to deliver. This is an organisation who had to return 1.2 million to central government that they were unable to deliver in grant form to sports clubs, and that was much needed money. And I seriously wonder how much money has actually come into Fermanagh Noma District from Sport NI in the last 4 years. So that's maybe something we need to consider, but I do welcome the motion. So sorry for wrecking that a wee bit on you, Barry. I'll hand it back to you.
I wish to acknowledge your own rugby genius as well, Chair. You're a big man in the rugby front, so you understand it. You understand it like other councillors who have spoken. Councillor Green outlined that this relates to a range of sports. Every sport, everybody can apply. That's what it's about. And he emphasised the benefit to the economy and reminded us that the council is pulling its weight, more than pulling its weight, you could say, in respect of providing opportunities for local clubs. Ultimately, it's about participation in sport, health and well-being. And I was very pleased with the support expressed fulsomely by Councillor Deehan, Councillor Mahan, Councillor Roof, Councillor Gannon, Councillor Warrington, and I don't think I've missed any contributor to the debate, have I? John McCloughery himself, the legend. But I suppose people are looking for the necessary second pitch. They're looking for floodlights, walkways, club enhancements, across the board. And I think it's important that this council make a very strong statement on behalf of our community, which is steeped in sport. And I think everybody in this community, both Tyrone and Fermanagh, understand what sport does for people. So thank you. Thanks to everybody who spoke.
Thank you. All right. I think we're all in agreement. Great. Thank you. Next, we go on to two-child cap benefit, and we're going to proposer is Councillor Hayes. Nolene.
Thank you, Chair. This motion is about the two-child benefit cap. It states in our own council's pathway out of poverty 10-year strategy that we just launched last December that children carry the impact of poverty furthest throughout their lives. 24% of children here in the north live in poverty, according to the latest statistics available for 22-23. But this the rate is based on household income only. It doesn't take into account any increases in household costs or inflation. So in reality, and according to agencies working on the ground in the communities, this figure could be significantly higher. One state benefit that could alleviate poverty is child tax credit or the child elements of universal credit. But since 2017, the two-child benefit cap which restricts this benefit to the first 2 children per family only, has been in place. There is limited exceptions to the rule for any subsequent children, for example, multiple births, twins, triplets, etc. But one specific exemption is only if you can prove that that child was conceived through rape, which is a despicable and inhumane clause, in my opinion. The benefit is worth £3,445 per child per year. So it's a significant amount which will go a long way to helping families with costs. It must also be said that despite some misguided preconceptions about families that claim benefits, the fact is the majority of families that do claim these are working families. This cap also disproportionately affects the population here, where 21.4% of families have 3 or more children, compared to 14.7% in GB. Many community workers' organisations have called for the permanent removal of this cap, including here the Law Centre NI and the Association of Social Workers NI, who asked Stormont and Department of Communities to work towards its removal last year. In the Association of Social Workers say that they witnessed firsthand the impacts of poverty on children, families and individuals across society, and that it's a major factor in contributing to problems which require intervention from social services. Children affected by this cap are 6 times more likely to be placed on the Child Protection Register, 4 times more likely to become looked after by social services, and at 2021 rates, for a child to be placed in a foster family costs £24,000 a year, and to be placed in a residential home costs £265,000 a year. So looking at this cap purely from an economic perspective, it makes more sense to grant these benefits to enable families to care for their children rather than pay for their care elsewhere. Fermanagh and Omagh Council must stress to the British government our strenuous opposition to the 2-child benefit cap policy, which is an unnecessary and particularly cruel punishment which affects innocent children and their families directly. And I hope this motion gets support across the chamber. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next we go to Councillor McNulty. He's seconding the motion. Oh, sorry, Claire. You off?
Off again, Emma.
No, you're okay. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I second this motion. The already stark statistics of child poverty has been greatly increased by this 2-child benefit cap. This 2-child limit denies tax credits worth up to £3,500 per year to 3rd or subsequent children born after April 2017. Abolishing the 2-child limit is the most cost-effective way to reduce child poverty, which is currently at a record level of 4.3 million. So the Association of Social Workers Northern Ireland also highlighted that growing up in poverty also increases adverse childhood experiences with associated long-term costs, not only for social work services, but also for the health service. It has also impacts in terms of education underachievements. So therefore, I think this benefit cap must be removed as soon as possible to prevent all of the knock-on effects on our society, socially and economically. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we'll go to Councillor Coyle.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to say a few words. It's no surprise that this kind of policy came from British Tory government, but it's very disheartening, disappointing to see that the present Labour government have not actually reversed it. In fact, they've suspended 7 of their MPs who did vote for the removal of the cap, and Angela Rayner, who's the Deputy Prime Minister over there, who once described it as obscene, is now supporting keeping it there. The 2-child cap has been linked to the high rates of poverty with families, obviously with 3 or more children, that's been said, but not all children are planned, because some people have the opinion, well, and the whole point of this Tory policy was that you control how many children you have. But most women that I speak to, not all children are planned. You can fall pregnant using contraception. It can just be a mistake or whatever. So if you are having your third or fourth child, what do you do? This sinister policy is anti-feminist, and it's an attack on women's rights and families' rights to choose how many children that they actually want. The rape clause, as Nolene has mentioned, highlights how wrong this policy is at every level. And just to quote Colin Gildnew, who spoke on this in the Assembly last year, no child should be denied financial support to meet their basic needs. And on behalf of our families and our children, we call on the British government to scrap it immediately. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Next we go to Councillor Bryan.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I want to thank the Councillor Hayes and Councillor McNulty for bringing forward the motion. I think it's a really, really important one. I think the most powerful and important thing that any of us could say about this is the simple fact that 1 in 4 children in this district are living in poverty. That's an indictment. It's an absolute scandal. As the motion says, children that live in poverty are more likely to have poorer outcomes throughout the rest of their life when it comes to their physical and their mental health, their educational attainment, and their employment opportunities in later life. So fixing child poverty is one of the most important things we could do as a society to make this place better, to give people a fair chance in life. I think we have to be clear as well that this 2-child benefit cap, which was brought in by the Tories, it's an attack on working class communities because that's who it impacts. It doesn't impact the rich or the powerful, it impacts the vulnerable and the working class communities. And it keeps them there. It creates a cycle of poverty which people cannot escape from. It's a classic Tory scapegoating method. Scapegoat the poor to boost up the chances of the rich. So it should be scrapped. I think that's clear. I think the motion calls for it to be scrapped. We want to see it scrapped. There's moves against this already taking place in Scotland, which is good to see. They have decided that they're no longer going to tolerate this punitive policy coming from London. They're going to take action into their own hands and mitigate against this to some degree. It might be hard because the funding has to be there in place for them. They'll make the choice that they'll make the funding available. So again, just the final point I want to say again about the Labour Party. The Labour Party are supposed to be the party that represents working class communities, but as we see time and time again, they've abandoned working class communities, which is a great shame, and I don't think it's going to work out very well for them. So I think that's it, Chair, so thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to disrupt the motion. I'm going to ask, can we have a short break or a comfort break? Saving Councillor McCann and Councillor Coyle, thank you. And then when we come back, we'll continue with reconvene. So if we come back for 10:05. Okay, thank you. Ready? Okay. Thank you, councillors. My old joints just aren't up to this job on this chair. But that's another story. Before we continue with this motion, I'm sorry for disrupting it, Councillor Hayes. Could I have a proposer to, I think we're going to get this meeting finished by 10:30. So Councillor Anne-Marie Donnelly and Councillor Stephen McCann. So we're going to continue. So next we go to Councillor Stephen Donnelly.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I can take this opportunity to thank Councillor Hayes and Councillor McNulty for bringing forward this motion. Whenever the Conservatives came to power in 2010, it ushered in a new age of inequality and deprivation that we're now living with the consequences of in terms of the living standards that have been utterly undermined. And it was very much hoped that with the arrival of a new Labour government that actually we would see a change in direction that actually focused on raising finance, but doing so in a way that was socially just, recognizing that there is wealth out there, but actually you didn't need to raise it by attacking the most vulnerable in our society. And to date, what we have seen is them target small businesses through the national insurance rise, farmers through the various changes to taxation policy, and now working families and children with their refusal to reverse the policy of the previous Conservative government with respect to the two-child benefit cap. And as my colleague, Saoirse Eastwood MP, said whenever she was voting against the two-child cap in Parliament recently, poverty is not a choice, it is a consequence of political decisions. This cruel and unnecessary policy will achieve nothing except putting thousands more families and children to poverty. And I think that it is worthwhile actually stressing that, even if you are able to set aside the cruelty of this measure, even if it was possible to put that aside, this is a policy that doesn't even achieve the objective of raising finance, because the implications in terms of health deprivation and other challenges that arise as a result of this attack is such that it will outweigh in terms of any supposed benefits that could potentially arise. And above all, the Prime Minister has said the central mission of his government is growth. And if that is the case, this strategy is built on sand. If he believes that a prosperous society can arise from attacking and disinvesting in working class families for the simple crime of having children. So, Chair, on behalf of the Alliance Party, I'm more than happy to support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Gallant.
Thank you, Chair, and I support the words and support this motion. But being honest, Chair, I'm surprised that's being brought by Sinn Féin tonight, given that they have actively refused to solve the issue of the two-child limit. Sinn Féin MLAs, along with the other executive parties, voted against even creating a plan to remove the two-child limit. That was on the 16th of April last year. They refused to even say, we will produce a plan by the end of the year. The SDLP brought forward a fully costed proposal using evidence from the Welfare Mitigations Review Panel, the NI Audit Office, and a wide range of charities and campaign groups. The party bringing this motion chose to keep the two-child limit last year. The two main parties in particular have an abysmal track record of lack of action and failure around poverty. And when the SDLP did their homework for them and put it on a plate, they still refused to address the issue. And to put it into context, I think some of the numbers have been said tonight already, but child poverty increased between 2023 and 2024 from 18% to 24%, and has no doubt got higher. The two-child limit contradicts the principles of equality and fairness, and it must be abolished. This motion points fingers at others, but the executive have the power to fix this. Given this, and given the voting record last year, I do not believe that Sinn Féin are genuine or sincere in their calls to end the two-child limit. This is yet another occasion of motions and words and platitudes from an executive party with absolutely no action, no deadlines. So, as a council, and I know the SDLP, we're calling on the executive to live up, and the executive parties to live up to their words and actually do something. Platitudes are great, but actions are much more effective. The plans are there. It's costed. Use it. It's there to be used. But I'm guessing nothing will be done because the track record says they're refusing to even consider, to plan to do something about it. And let's be real, there's a record of increasing poverty in the north. And addressing child poverty clearly isn't a political priority for the executive, because the executive does have power and it could change things. Actions speak louder than words, and it's time, long overdue time, for actions, not words, on this. The executive chose to do nothing and keep the 2-child benefit cap in place last year. They need to commit and actually do something about it rather than just words, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Next we'll go to Councillor Hawkes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the 2 lady councillors who brought this forward tonight. 1 in every 4 children in Northern Ireland live in a family which struggles to provide for their basic needs, provide a warm, adequate home, nutritious food, appropriate clothing, and to pay for childcare. Children whose parents often have to go without themselves and get into debt to make ends meet, and who do not have the means to save money for unexpected costs or family outings. Children in poverty are twice as likely to leave school without 5 good GCSEs. They are also more likely to suffer poor mental health, have fewer years of good physical health, and a lower life expectancy. There are 4 main reasons for high persistent poverty in Northern Ireland. These are high levels of unemployment, high rates of disability and limiting long-term illness, low wages, poor quality part-time jobs, and obstacles to working mothers. According to our own report, Pathways Out of Poverty, a household is said to be in fuel poverty if it needs to spend more than 10% of its income on energy costs. Now, Fermanagh and Omagh District has the highest at-risk rate of fuel poverty of all 11 councils in Northern Ireland. Now, this is not going to be a problem that's going to be solved by Fermanagh and Omagh District Council nor Stormont, in my opinion. In 2023, for an example, BP profited by £11 billion, profit which had almost halved from the 2022 year. Their chief executive, Alison, if you're interested, was paid £8 million in pay and £6.5 million in bonuses. So maybe you might think you're in the wrong job. Now, while this is no child poverty is not a laughing matter, but I just couldn't resist throwing that wee bit in. Child poverty is actually not inevitable. Government can begin to eradicate child poverty in Northern Ireland by meeting the material needs of children through increasing family incomes. This should include making sure there are sufficient well-paid jobs for parents and young school leavers, ensuring that the social security system is a safety net as intended, which prevents families falling into poverty. Resources must be allocated to migrate against recent changes, including the 2-tier limit, which we're discussing here tonight.
Start wrapping up there, Nick.
Sorry, well, I will just wrap up because just by saying to Sinn Féin in particular, we have 2 MPs who don't take their seats in Westminster. Westminster is where this will be changed. We can talk about Tory cuts here, which I have listened to from I come into this council. It's now Labour cuts. Labour has worked against old age pensioners, and they have not reinstated this child benefit. Thank you very much.
Councillor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. Well, the Ulster Unionist Party had and still has many concerns about the previous welfare reform. It's not just the 2-child cap, but even the bedroom tax, which illustrates how short-sighted a number of these reforms were. The 2-child cap in particular will be having a detrimental impact on the numbers of children and young people locally in child poverty. But we need to be honest and recognise that whilst Sinn Féin are proposing tonight's motion, it was them who still allowed the legislation to be passed in Stormont. At the time when the Welfare Reform Bill was passing through the Northern Ireland Assembly, a number of sensible amendments were made by our own party and other parties, but these were either blocked or voted down. So whilst we're happy to support tonight's motion, we also need to be honest and recognise how the different local parties voted at the time. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, next we go to Councillor Deehan online.
Thank you, Chair. And at the outset, I want to commend Councillor Hayes, Councillor McNulty for bringing this motion to Council tonight. And I don't for one moment, Chair, doubt how genuine these two councillors are in their desire to see an end to the two-child benefit cap. This council has always been concerned about levels of poverty within our community. And so it is a really disturbing statistic to hear that 1 in 4 children are facing poverty on a day-to-day basis. And other members have spoken eloquently about the impact that that will have on the children's health, well-being and development. We all opposed the Tories' cruel welfare reforms, and we did look to the Labour government to start the process of reversing these unjust, inequitable and cruel policies instigated by the Tory government. And so far we have been disappointed in that. The two-child benefit cap, in my view, is an obscene policy. It is anti-family. It is intrusive on family life. It is an attempt not only to suppress the most vulnerable in our society, it's also an attempt at social engineering by trying to ensure that couples limit their family size. And as for the rape clause, I think that is an obscenity. And think of, for families who through desperation would want to invoke this clause, think of the impact that would have on the child in question. It's unthinkable. And to think that in the UK, which is the 6th largest economy in the world, and also a society which would regard itself as being socially progressive, to think that they would introduce such a policy is totally abhorrent. And so for that reason, Chair, I don't want to engage in party politics tonight. I want to give my wholehearted support to this motion because the two-child benefit cap must go. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Next we go Councillor Anne-Marie Fitzgerald online.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. I'd like to thank my two party colleagues for bringing this towards this evening. This is something that can never be shied away from. There's been numerous attacks tonight by different parties. Westminster is not the place for our party. We don't take the seats, and those parties who do take the seats hasn't made any difference whatsoever. The two children taxes still come on over here. So thank you very much. That's my reply to that one. And then the other one then of the Sinn Féin bringing on the retrograde steps of universal credit. Martin McGuinness's hand was held over the fire. And if this wasn't implemented, we have received over 500 million of additional funds to the north, and that was to mitigate the numerous package of the universal package. So that was to be very much welcome, and if we didn't accept it, Stormont would have been not running at all. So this is one of the things we had to take, and we were called to take our seat in Stormont. So there we go on that one. But this is a hugely draconian backward step. It is focusing on the working class families, as I said before, and it's focusing on women and on women's reproductive rights. And I think it's pathetic and disgusting. And that, as Councillor Deehan had said, that it is socially engineered towards the working class families. It's very much come back into the Chinese laws years ago, where they only allowed one child, and then they were allowed 2 children. And they realised then with 1 or 2 children is that there's not enough as the children go into adults, there's not enough people to look after the elderly, or to work in government or factories or anything like that. So we're very much going backwards. And 59% of the families who work, who receive the working tax credits, or the families or whatever for 2 children or more, 59% of those families who get this benefit are actually in work. I think that it's sad. It's sad that it's been used to politicise other parties. You know what I mean? I think that the SDLP should have, that they're more about sound bites than anything else. I think that they should maybe come on ahead and storm out and try and get things done instead of biting behind the scenes. So I fully support this motion going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Green and Councillor McCann, and he's keep it concise. I know you've had party colleagues speaking on this, and I know that we may be playing a game of tennis here, but if you can make it concise and keep to the point.
Thank you, Chair. I'll not be any longer than anyone else. I just want to say about the SDLP. I was kind of shocked there at Adam that he descended into playing party politics with this. I presume Matthew O'Toole maybe sent him that wee rant down from Stormont to do it. So fair play to that's probably he'll get standing in the next Assembly election now when he has said that. But the SDLP's proposal would have cost in the region of 70 million per year. I wonder, will Adam say where that 70 million cuts were going to come from? Would it be health? Would it be education? I don't know where, but anyway, that's the reality. It's all right, you know, sitting on the sidelines and creating magic money tree. The money comes from Westminster, and until that changes, and I would hope the SDLP would support the call for a bottom poll, and the sooner it changes, the better. As for the DUP, then they added onto the attack. Let's remember when this was introduced, the DUP was in bed with the Tory government, keeping them in power. This wasn't a Tory policy. This was the DUP Tory policy. It was them that introduced it. They could have blocked it at the time, but they didn't. So let's get that right as well. And then we had the UUP coming in with their wee attack then, the party that once called themselves Yukons, when they also got into bed with the Tories, you know, and when we see what's going on with the Lakeland Forum, they're definitely not Tory light, they'd be Tory heavy. So anything they'd say I'd take with a pinch of salt. So that's probably my wee rant over, and it didn't take that long.
Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll be very brief. I suppose the season of goodwill is definitely and truly over by the look of things. Listen, this shouldn't have been controversial. You know, child poverty affects all children here, whether you're a nationalist or whether you're unionist. But I was disappointed now at Councillor Gannon's head stagger, in fairness. You know, the two-child cap is a UK government policy. You know, his MP sit in Westminster alongside the government who's now in power. You know, so listen, if you want to start pointing the finger, we can. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. We know what the problems is here. Again, listen, I think it's all been said. I'll leave it at that, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Whilst there's plenty of tennis going on, I take it everybody was in agreement. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hayes for summing up, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. I'd like to thank everybody who supported the motion. Just want to say, went through a couple of things, just to emphasise that, as others have said, it's mainly working parents on low pay that claim this benefit, and that poverty is a scourge. You know, it follows children all through their lives, it follows families, it affects their opportunities in every step of the way. As for the people who decided to play party politics with this subject, I won't comment any more on it, and I'll just let them live with that. But thank you, everyone, for supporting it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hayes. I take it, whilst many had plenty to say, that all the parties were in agreement, so any to the contrary? So the motion's passed. I'm going to ask to go into confidential now, because I don't believe, if we can get through the confidential quickly, I may get some of the OB done, but I don't believe I'll get all of it done. But if it goes by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Crawford. So No, yeah. Thank you. Chief Executive is going to sum up.
Thanks, Chair. While in committee, the Council adopted confidential minutes of the Council meeting held on the 3rd of December, the December Environmental Services Committee, December Policy Resources Committee and December Planning Committee meeting, and there were no matters arising from any of those committees. The Council also agreed to a proposal to try to a local organisation in respect to property and also utilisation of a facility.
Okay. Proposer and a seconder, Councillor Robinson, Councillor Hawkes. Thank you. All in agreement? Thank you. So I have a number of matters arising. So the first one I'm going to go to is Councillor McNulty. Or is it under AOB? If you keep it concise, please.
All right. Well, thank you, Chair. I want to propose that we as a council write to the CCMS to seek an in-person meeting regarding the future of Chumley Primary School. Last week we had an informal meeting with the principal and the representatives of the Board of Governors to hear their concerns regarding the so-called development proposal to close the school. This proposal is ill thought out, it's flawed and it's wrong. It does not serve the best educational interests of children in the area. Chumley Primary School is an excellent school and needs to be supported and developed into the future, not closed. A few new models of helping to make the school more sustainable into the future are needed, then let us do it. Let us look at these. There has been a lack of consultation and transparency throughout to date. The CCMS are not listening to the local people. Far too many questions have not been addressed and remained unanswered. I propose that we write to Eve Bremner, Chief Executive Officer of the CCMS, to seek an urgent meeting. I propose that we open this meeting up to include representatives of the whole school community. Finney.
Okay, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Campbell. All in agreement? Thank you. Next we go to Councillor Rosemary Barton. And you're Lack.
Yes, I'm Lack Primary School, and indeed Lack was mentioned in the meeting we had the other evening. But sadly, since that, Lack Primary School learned yesterday of news that the Department of Education will be closing the school in August 2025. And this has caused deep disappointment in the locality. And despite there's been a lot of effort put into trying to save this school, and particularly through the consultation, locals support, there was great support for the school through written replies to the consultation, and locals supported the school totally. And yet DE didn't listen to what was being said. So it makes one think, are these consultations just a paper exercise to satisfy the necessary process? Can I just also say that, again, this is another rural school, the death of another rural school, and the damage this will do to the community is unthinkable. We've watched rural school after rural school be closed, and I asked the Minister to reconsider and think on what has happened, and perhaps think outside the box and how we can start looking at rural schools and keeping them open.
So if you get to a proposal, just I'm running out of time here.
Yeah. Also, the well-being of the teachers as we proceed now. Of course, it is the well-being of the staff and teachers that are our number one priority. Thank you for allowing me this statement.
Councillor Mahan, I'm going to let you in very quickly here. Sorry, what was the proposal there, Rosemary? To write to
the Minister again in relation to this.
Can you just give us a clear what you want to...
Oh, right to the Minister and ask him to reconsider his decision.
Okay.
Please.
Councillor Mahan, I'm going to let you in very quickly here.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm quite happy to second that proposal. It is indeed a very disappointing decision for the parents, pupils, teachers and staff, and indeed the whole community. This was after a hard fight by the Principal Sandra, the Board of Governors, parents and indeed elected representatives such as yourself, Chair. The next year was secured. Everyone hoped that this extension would run on and allow the school to remain open, but sadly that's not the case. Can I personally put on record my sincere thanks to the Principal Sandra and all the teaching staff for their long service at the school, but hopefully with this proposal we can maybe get this reversed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mahan. Heard it proposed and seconded that we write, all in agreement. Thank you. Next I'm bringing in Councillor Campbell.
I've got a Carly. I'll keep my comments brief.
And I want to get straight to the point and propose that our council commits to becoming an autism-friendly council and engage with Autism NA and the Middleton Centre for Autism for their support in creating an autism-friendly environment in our council buildings, our leisure centres and community centres. I note that at least one other council has done that. I'd further propose that we develop in the same spirit a training programme to ensure that staff and us as members develop our awareness and skills in that regard to support those who are neurodiverse. The lack of autism services finally can be damaging, not just in the impact it has on those affected acutely, but their families, but also in public confidence in an organisation. And in the context of policing, we've seen distressing and worrying examples of a lack of awareness, and they can be sourced online. So with that in mind, I'm also proposing that we write to the Chief Constable of the PSNI and just asking to reassurances really that the PSNI staff are receiving autism awareness training. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Chief Executive, do you want to come in here quickly?
Just very briefly, if Councillor Campbell is, I don't disagree, but could we just maybe investigate, report in the first instance what we are doing? We are doing quite a bit around training and certain provisions, and then what additional requirements are to make us an autism-friendly council. So if we could do that at the first stage, but
part of the process. Thank
okay,
you.
No, thank you.
Second. Yeah.
Just a second.
Councillor McCann, come in quickly there to say.
Yeah, just in a nutshell, Chair, I suppose people who are neurodivergent, we're starting to see more and more the challenges that they're facing, getting, customer-facing experiences, et cetera, So happy to second.
Okay, thank you. Councillor, are we all in agreement? Thank you. Councillor Crawford, quickly.
Thank you, Chair. I will be brief. Just on the back of your comments on the Sports Capital Grant motion, I would propose that we write to Sport NI seeking how much the funding has been allocated to FODC over the last 4 years, and particularly what percentage of that was allocated to this council on the annual budget. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Second for that, Councillor Roof. Thank you. All in agreement? Thank you. Sorry, I've run out of time. Sorry, everybody. Yeah. Sorry, I've got. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. That's us out of time, so thank you. Yeah.